Yo guys, welcome to the Zelda fiction. Today we are gonna see, what if Naruto got harem with FemOrochimaru? Part 1. Huge shout out to MercenaryGrax for this story. If you end up liking this video, please consider subscribe, so without further ado, let's get into the video. She had watched him for years, ever since he was born. Naruto Uzumaki, child of Minato Namikaze and Kushina Uzumaki. The Yellow Flash and 4th Hokage of Konoha, and the Red Death herself. Orika knew that the boy had the potential to be something great, but she also knew that the village would restrict him, make him weak. As soon as it was revealed that he was the Jinchuriki of the Kyuubi no Yoko, they would scorn him, mistreat him, perhaps even attempt to take his life. She couldn't have that, not when he was so special. So, Orika had her spies within Konoha work to keep young Naruto safe from harm. Of course, they had yet to reveal themselves to him as her agents, but those were simply minor details. Orika had instructed her right-hand woman, one Kuriko Yakushi, to act as Naruto's personal doctor. This way, she could have Kuriko subtly plant ideas into Naruto's head. One such idea was to question everything he knew, including the Hokage's supposed friendship. She wanted him to become suspicious of everyone around him so that one day he could be hers. You see, Orika was one of the 3 legendary Sannin. She was known as the Snake Sage and was quite arguably the strongest of the 3, though others would argue that Jiraiya or Tsunade were the stronger of the trio. All in all, it was simply a matter of opinion, and it didn't truly matter to the powerful woman. She had been chased out of Konoha for performing illegal experiments on people, but that was only part of the truth. Danzo had gone behind Hiruzen's back and had convinced her to start these horrible experiments as a way to benefit Konoha as a whole, or rather himself. And for a time, she played along with the old fool because their interests coincided with one another. Until the day they didn't. Danzo had attempted to persuade her to use her research to grant him certain powers that were never meant to be used by the likes of the old cripple. Orika had declined and, as a result, Danzo had let it slip to Hiruzen that she was performing horrendous experiments in an attempt for immortality or some such bullshit. So she really had no choice but to flee in the end. But again, those are merely details that did not matter in the long run. What did matter to Orika was her precious Naruto-kun. For her plan to work, she had to ensure his loyalty to the village was far from absolute, like Hiruzen and Danzo would most likely try to instill in the young boy. And try they did. Subtle brainwashing techniques to try and coerce him into giving his loyalty to the village and to either of the old men. Though, plans have a funny way of derailing once they are set into motion. As the old saying goes. Whatever can go wrong, will go wrong. While her agents within Konoha kept tabs on Naruto and subtly turned him against Konoha, Orika had formed her own hidden village deep within the land of rice fields. At first, she had considered convincing the daimyo to change the name of the country to match the name of her hidden village, but she had decided against doing so. She had named this hidden village Otagaker and had recruited only the best shinobi she could gather. Orika had one subordinate that had dedicated absolutely everything to her, a young woman by the name of Kimiko Kagaya, the last of the Kagaya clan. Unfortunately, she had a deadly disease that was slowly killing her. Orika had promised her that she would find a cure for the kind-hearted Kagaya, but so far she had not had any luck. If she could find Tsunade and convince her to help her, then she was sure Kimiko could be saved. Now that she thought about it, she realized that Kimiko might actually make a good present for Naruto-kun. Humming in thought, she nodded to herself and decided that she would make finding Tsunade one of her top priorities. After all, Naruto deserved to be happy, and what better gift to him than a beautiful woman. Again, none of that mattered at the moment. No, the Chunin Exams were in progress now, taking place in Konoha this year. She had plans, big ones, but in order to pull them off, she'd have to time everything right and make everything work out just perfectly. In order to distract them from her true goal, she planned to mark one Sasuke-Uchiha with a curse seal, the same kind she had given to her previous pupil. Anko Midarashi. Anko was still furious with her for abandoning her the way she did, but Orika did what she did for a reason. Anko's loyalty was to the village of Konoha, and she found that she could not sway her loyalty away from the blasted village. Orika had a few plans in the works that would take place during the exams. The primary goal was to get in contact with Naruto and talk with him for a time. She needed to try and convince him to leave the village with her. If she promised him training that nobody else was giving him, as well as companionship and perhaps a little something more, she was certain he'd take the bait. Kuriko had informed her that Naruto was lonely, extremely so. He had no friends and no loved ones. The only person he truly talked to these days was Kuriko and Orika's other agents in the village. He couldn't bring himself to trust anyone else, no matter how kind they seemed at first. Sure enough, Naruto had been placed on the new Team 7 under the leadership of Kakashi Hatake. His teammates were Sasuke-Uchiha and Sakura Haruno. Sasuke was as arrogant as they came and thought way too highly of himself. Everything she had heard about the boy irritated her to no end, and the abuse he put Naruto through infuriated her to no end. She loathed the boy and wanted more than almost anything to kill the wretched little brat. But no, that would not end well for her, so she decided to go with an alternate plan and use him as a distraction. Sakura Haruno was another problem. She was a die-hard Uchiha fangirl. Naruto would try to be nice to her whenever Sasuke ignored her or said something rude, and she'd hit him for it. Now Sakura, Orika would kill and take great pleasure in doing so. Then there was Kakashi. Kakashi was a lazy prick that completely ignored Naruto and Sakura in favor of training the rotten Uchiha. If Naruto hadn't been receiving training from her agents, chances are he would have died already while on missions outside of the village. From what she had gathered from her agents, Kakashi loathed Naruto, blaming him for his sensei's death, no matter how stupid that was. Thinking on Naruto's fellow graduates, she realized that very few of them genuinely cared for Naruto. Actually, she could only name one that actually gave a damn about him. Hinata Hyuga. However, she was far too shy and insecure to actually approach him or say so much as a single word to him in greeting. The others were either apathetic towards him, didn't care about him, or treated him like shit. As for their sensei, she realized that Kurenai disapproved of Hinata's crush on the boy. Kurenai felt that Naruto was nothing more than a troublemaker and a danger to her favorite student. Asuma, on the other hand, just didn't care one way or another about her lovable blonde. For 17 years, Naruto had been all alone in the village with the only real positive communication being with her agents. Once she had him safely back in her village, he'd never be alone again. He would be loved, cherished, hell, she'd make sure he was worshipped like a god if need be. For now, Orika had entered the village, disguised as the Jonin sensei for the genin team she had entered into the exams this time around. The team consisted of 2 boys named Dosu Kanuta and Zaku Abumi, and a lone girl by the name of Kinsui. They were skilled enough to get through to the final stage of the exams if need be, but she had another purpose in mind for them. In fact, now that she thought on it, she might just give Kin to Naruto as well. He deserved to feel loved, and she was going to give him all the love he deserved, and then some. At the moment, she had snuck into the Forest of Death where the second stage of the exams was taking place. She had followed Team 7 for a time, waiting for the right moment to make her move. When Naruto separated from the others to take a leak, much to Sakura's disgust, she struck. Using the great breakthrough technique, she sent Sasuke and Sakura flying away, deeper into the forest where they hit a couple of trees hard enough to knock them out. She would deal with them in a moment. Appearing in front of Naruto, Orika smiled at him and revealed her true self to him. "Hello, Naruto-kun. We finally get to meet, face to face. Admit it, you knew I was following you all along, didn't you?" Naruto shrugged and looked her in the eyes apathetically. "And if I did? Who are you, anyway? I get the feeling you wanted to get me alone." Orika giggled for a moment before sauntering closer to him. Upon reaching him, she reached up and placed a tender hand upon his cheek. "Naruto-kun, I'm the woman Kiriko-chan told you about. I'm Orika of the Sannin. I've come for you. I want to get you out of this village and back home with me. These people don't treat you well. I can tell you everything you've ever wanted to know. I can give you whatever you desire. I'll even train you personally to tap into all that wonderful potential you have just waiting to come out. Just come with me, Naruto-kun, and you'll never have to be alone or abused again." Naruto sighed and closed his eyes, letting himself think over everything for a time. "The Hokage won't just let me leave. I'm not saying no, but we'll need some kind of plan to get me the hell out of here. Kiriko-chan's been good to me, and I appreciate the company. And I know the Hokage has lied to me all my life. If it wasn't for Kiriko-chan telling me about my burden, Mizuki very well could have killed me when he revealed the secret in his own, warped way. He wanted to defect and join you. Do you know that?" Hearing this, Orika sighed and shook her head in disappointment. "I would never have accepted someone like that in my ranks. Especially not when he tried to frame and then kill you, my darling Naruto-kun." "I kinda figured as much," Naruto said with a shrug. "Anyways, I suppose you've got some kind of plan to get me the hell out of here. 'Cause I'll tell you right now, I'm more than willing to get the hell out of this place. I hate it here, I hate the Hokage, I hate the people, I hate everything about this cesspool of a village. I'd love to see it burn. Hell, I'd love to be the one to raise the village to the ground. Right now though, without the proper training and guidance. I know I can't do shit. Though, before I agree to join you, I want to know one thing. Who are my parents?" Orika frowned sadly and said, "Since it's important for you to know, I'll tell you. But you need to keep your temper under control, okay Naruto-kun?" Seeing him nod in understanding, she began to gently stroke his whisker marks as she said, "Your mother was a beautiful woman known as Kushina Uzumaki, otherwise known as the Red Death. I'll explain more about her and your clan later. As for your father, he was the 4th Hokage, the Yellow Flash himself, Minato Namikaze. Clenching his fists tight, Naruto did his absolute best to keep control, so his chakra didn't spike wildly from the absolute fury he felt right now. Taking a few deep breaths to steady himself, he said, "Thank you. I assume they left some kind of inheritance for me, just in case they passed away." Orika nodded and said, "I already have Kiriko and my other agents working on getting everything for you. Of course, in order to access your parents' home, we'll need some of your blood. There's still time, however." Wrapping her arms around Naruto, she pulled him close so their bodies were pressed against one another. "Naruto-kun, I have a plan. I want you to trust in me, okay? Everything will be explained soon, I promise. For now, I need you to continue to act as if we had never met. I'm going to mark Sasuke-Uchiha with a curse seal. This will serve as a distraction from my main goal. Extracting you from this horrible village. I'll speak with you again soon. Just wait for me, okay?" Before Naruto could say a word, Orika pressed her lips to his, probing his mouth with her tongue. Slowly, he began to return her kiss, relishing in the warm feeling he got from this kind of contact. When they separated, he looked her in the eyes, somewhat astonished at what had just happened. After a few brief moments, he kissed her again, his hand slowly trailing up under her shirt. When he began to massage her brass beeps, she let out a husky moan into their kiss. He could feel his arousal, and so could she, considering they were pressed against one another. Breaking apart again, they were both panting, barely able to control themselves. Before she realized it, Orika found her hand inside of Naruto's pants, massaging his hard-on. After a moment, however, she regained her senses and shook her head, retracting her hand. "Naruto-kun, we can't. Not here. Not now. There's simply not enough time. If you truly want to go through with this, then later. I promise. Right now, I need to mark Sasuke before I'm found by someone, such as Anko Midarashi." Naruto grunted, clearly annoyed that they couldn't just rut like animals in heat right now. He was hot and bothered, damn it. "Still, I understand, Orika-chan. Do what you have to do. I'll deal with this small problem." Orika smirked at him before pecking him on the cheek. "Trust me, that's not what I'd call small." She teased before she disappeared, leaving Naruto to stand there and deal with his problem. "Ugh. She's over twice my age and I want to funk her brains out. She certainly doesn't look that old, though. I wonder how she's kept such a youthful appearance. Ah well, no time to think on that now. I need to deal with this problem of mine and meet up with my team. Damn, I'm horny." He thought agitatedly as he began to whack off in an attempt to get his beep to go down. "Oh, for funk's sake, come on." Later. When Naruto finally caught up to his teammates, Orika had given Sasuke her curse seal and had long since vanished. When Sakura saw him, she glared at him and shouted, "Where the hell were you, Naruto Baka? Look at what's happened to Sasuke-kun because you weren't here. What the funk were you doing? Playing with yourself, I bet. Hami, do you ever shut up, Sakura? I swear, I'm so sick of hearing your voice I could scream. You and that asshole piss me off so much. Maybe, just maybe I was attacked too. Did you ever think about that? No, of course you didn't. All you ever think about in your little world is Sasuke-kun this and Sasuke-kun that. Here's your big chance. He's lying right there unconscious. You can free his beep and go for a nice all ride. I'll even go away and give you the privacy you need so you can funk the shit out of him and get yourself nice and pregnant with little Uchiha babies," Naruto said angrily. Sakura blushed from a mixture of embarrassment, anger, and, if he was detecting it right, arousal. Instead of snapping at Naruto, she looked at Sasuke and began to giggle pervertedly. Frowning in disgust, Naruto said, "If you're going to go through with it, I suggest we find someplace safer. Once we're safe, I'll let you do whatever you want to him. I just do not care anymore." The Pinket snapped out of her fantasy-fueled desires and nodded once in understanding. Watching as her blonde teammate lifted Sasuke over his shoulder, she followed after him until they found the perfect spot to hide within a burrow under the roots of a rather large tree. Lying Sasuke down inside so he could rest, Naruto walked out into the clearing and began to set up traps. "Go ahead, Sakura, do whatever you want to him. I'm not going to bother you, and I doubt anyone else will either." Sakura began to giggle pervertedly as she helped Sasuke out of his pants. However, when she reached out and gripped Sasuke's Hokage, she blinked at how small it was. "What?" she asked aloud. "Maybe." Pumping it a few times, she saw that no matter how hard she tried, it wasn't getting hard. What the hell? Naruto sighed as he walked in and looked at her. "What's the problem now, Sakura?" The pink-haired girl looked into his eyes in horror and said, "He's so small. And he can't even get it up. It's like he has no sex drive. Is he impotent?" Naruto blinked a couple of times as he tried to process what he had just been told. Can't say I was expecting that. I'm not exactly surprised, but still news to me," he said with a shrug. "What are you going to do?" Sakura frowned deeply and slid Sasuke's pants back up into place. Nothing now. If he's that small and he can't get it up, there's pretty much no way he can restore the Uchiha clan. Sighing, she shook her head and said, as shallow as this may sound of me, I just can't be with him if we can't have children together. I want to be able to start a family with my loved one. The blonde simply shrugged and said, maybe he just wasn't the one you were meant to be with, Sakura. No offense meant by that, I'm just trying to say that there's probably someone out there you were truly destined for. Someone you're meant to be happy with. And believe me when I say that you deserve to have some happiness. Yeah, you've treated me like shit, but you're not a bad person. At least I don't think so. The Pincat sighed sadly and laid back on the ground, not even caring about all the dirt and the fact it was getting in her long pink hair right now. I'm sorry, Naruto. I should have been nicer to you. After all, you saved me from those bullies when we were younger. But I believed my parents when they said you were a monster, and so I either stayed away from you, ignored you, or worse beat on you to impress Sasuke-kun. But you've never been a monster. Looking into his eyes, she asked, you're the Jinchuriki of the Kyuubi no Yoko, aren't you? Naruto's eyes widened slightly before he chuckled in slight amusement. You've always been a smart one, Sakura-chan. Yes, I'm the Jinchuriki of the Kyuubi. It was sealed within me from the moment of my birth by my parents. He explained, deciding to extend the old olive branch and see if he could trust her with such information. Sakura took a moment to process what he had just said. When she figured it out, her eyes widened and she asked, your father's the fourth. Why would he doom you to such a horrible fate? The blonde sighed and shook his head. I don't know. I have no way of knowing for sure. I just know that the entire village seems to blame me for what the fox did. They seem to think that I'm the Kyuubi rather than its jailer. They've tried to kill me more than a few times. Sadly, you get kind of used to it after a while. He said with another shrug of his shoulders. Sakura frowned sadly at him before she sat up and wrapped her arms around him. I'm so sorry. I should never have listened to my parents. You were always so kind to me, Naruto-kun. In fact, to be perfectly honest with you, you were my first real crush. Then all of that happened and I fell in with the crowd. I'm really, truly sorry. Naruto hugged her close and gently ran his hand up and down her back. It's fine, Sakura-chan. I forgive you. I'll be honest. I hate the village and its people. I hate living here. I hate the Hokage. I hate pretty much everything about Konoha. But I never hated people like you and Hinata. I just couldn't bring myself to. If I didn't care about people, I wouldn't have saved the both of you from those bullies. As Naruto sighed, Sakura looked searchingly into his eyes. After a moment, she asked, then why stay here? Why not run away somewhere where you can be loved and treated like a normal person? You deserve better than this, Naruto-kun. The blonde looked into her eyes and asked, if I tell you something would you tell the Hokage? Or can you keep a secret? The Pincat frowned and shook her head. If it has to do with you being abused here and finding a way to make things better for yourself, I'll keep your secret. I won't tell a soul. Naruto closed his eyes and thought it over. He wasn't sure if he should trust her with such sensitive information yet. But at the same time, he didn't want to always be suspicious of everyone, despite Kiriko advising him that he should always be wary of people in the various hidden villages. After a while, he sighed frustratedly before looking deep into Sakura's eyes. Orika, the woman that attacked Sasuke, is going to help me escape the village. I'm leaving with her. Sakura frowned slightly and asked, are you sure you can trust her? What if she tries to hurt you? Naruto shook his head and said, I trust her. She's been watching over me for a long time now. She's protected me from the shadows. I think she deserves my trust. The Pincat nodded in understanding, though she still looked a bit hesitant. If you're sure, I'll believe you. But what's the matter, Sakura-chan? Naruto questioned. Could you, Harem, take me with you? I don't really have any friends here. And once my parents learn that I'm not going to chase after Sasuke anymore, they're likely to disown me for going against their wishes. You're pretty much the only person that really cares about me on any level. So please take me with you. Sakura pleaded. Naruto blinked in astonishment, unable to comprehend what his teammate had just asked of him. Come again? Are you sure you want that? What about Ino? Or some of those other girls? What about the other rookies we graduated with? Sakura scowled and shook her head. Ugh, don't even get me started. Ino's a bitch. We broke off our friendship to chase after Sasuke. Oh, I'll tell her all about Sasuke's impotence, but I doubt she'll listen. As for those other girls, they're even worse than she is. As for the other rookies, they don't view me as anything more than a pathetic fangirl. I'll admit that's what I was because I didn't take my training seriously at all. But considering our sensei doesn't even attempt to teach us anything, I don't think that's entirely our fault, you know. I want to become a great kunoichi, and I can't do that if I'm stuck here, unable to learn a damn thing. You're going to get the best kind of training available from Orika, and I want in on it. Please try to convince her to take me with you. Please. Naruto took some time to think it over before he nodded in agreement. Sure, Sakura-chan. I'll talk to her when I see her again. But you have to promise never to hit me again or try to hurt me in any way. I don't think she'd take too kindly to that. He said with a sweat drop. I think I can convince her though. I don't know what her plan is to get me out of here, but I guarantee she'll be able to get us the hell out of here. Sakura cheered before she grabbed both sides of Naruto's face and kissed him on the lips. Thank you, thank you, thank you. You won't regret it, Naruto-kun. Then they both realized what she had just done. Blushing badly, they backed away from one another. Sakura began to poke her fingers together shyly, just like Hinata usually did. I'm sorry. I don't know what came over me. Naruto chuckled softly and said, it's fine, Sakura-chan. I didn't hate it. But was that your first kiss? If it was, are you sure you wanted to give it to me like that? Sakura blushed deeper and nodded her head slowly. It was. And it's fine. If I was to give it to anyone, I'm glad it was with someone I trust. I could do more for you if you wanted. Naruto blushed as well, but shook his head. We really shouldn't, Sakura-chan. Sasuke's right there, and we're in the middle of what is essentially enemy territory. Something could happen at any time. We just wouldn't have enough time to have fun together. Sakura smirked saucily at him and said, I can't help but notice how you didn't outright deny me. Essentially, you're saying that when we're alone and safe, you wouldn't mind having sex with me. Right. Naruto felt like his head was turning so red it would burst. Unable to look Sakura in the eyes, he said, maybe I don't know yet, okay? You're beautiful, and well, it's not like I haven't thought about it before. Oh Kami, this is awkward. Sauntering towards him, she pressed herself against him and pressed her hand against his cheek. Leaning up, she captured his lips with hers before sliding a hand inside of his pants. When she felt his impressive tool, she grinned at him and said, oh yeah, this is exactly what a proper tool should be like. As Sakura began to massage his beep, Naruto let out a low moan before he pulled her in for another, passionate kiss. Afterwards, he pinned her to the ground and began to fondle her brass beeps, trying to be gentle with her. When she began to tug on his pants, he grunted and shook his head, breaking apart from her. I want to, damn it. But we can't. Damn it, I want to. Funk. The pincat frowned before pulling him in for another passionate kiss. Afterwards, she looked into his eyes and said, don't fight it, Naruto-kun. Just let it happen. It's not that, Sakura-chan. We have company. Damn it, I want you. Funking hell. Getting blue-balled twice in the span of a few funking hours. Funk my life, goddammit. Naruto said and then thought angrily. Sakura pouted before she stood up and readjusted her clothes. Looking at Naruto, she saw him doing the same, except he had a noticeable tent in his pants. Giggling a bit, she walked outside with him and looked towards the bushes dead ahead of them. You can come out now. We know you're there. She said confidently. Out of the bushes came the team of Oto Genin. When the two males on the team noticed Naruto's raging boner, Zaku shouted, oh man, what the hell? The funk were you doing that got you that? No, never mind. I do not want to know. Just put that thing away or whatever. Do something. Kin, on the other hand, couldn't help but eye the tent with a noticeable blush on her face. And, if Naruto wasn't mistaken, she actually licked her lips seductively. Raising a brow at this, he soon shrugged it off. So, what are you three doing here? Making a motion with his hands and eyes, he signaled both the Oto Genin and Sakura that they were currently being watched. Nodding in understanding, Dosu said, well, we're here to kill Sasuke. And her too. Pointing at Sakura, he shrugged and said, orders are orders, after all. I see. I don't give a shit about Sasuke, but Sakura-chan's off limits. Sending a look at the three of them, he was glad when they got the message that he'd tell them later. Zaku, deciding to play his role as the hothead, took a few steps forward, only to jump back when a nasty trap triggered and attempted to bisect him. Eyes widening in horror, he looked at Naruto and said, the funk man, who the hell sets traps like that? Naruto simply shrugged and said, I do. All those pranks I pulled were training for this kind of thing. They weren't just for fun, you know. Wait, you wouldn't know about that. Never mind. Scratching the back of his head, the blonde let out a heavy sigh and shook his head. You're not going to be able to make it through my traps, I'm afraid. You might want to go get the scroll you need and get to the tower. Kin smiled seductively at him and said, couldn't you just let us through? I'm sure we could come to a certain arrangement if you did. One that would benefit us both and be quite pleasurable. The blonde raised an eyebrow as he looked at her appraisingly. I'll admit, you're a beautiful woman. But the rules said we need all team members alive if we want to pass this stage of the exams. So I can't let you kill Sasuke, no matter how much I'd love to let you. Tell me though, what's your name? I'd love to know the name of such a beautiful lady. Sakura scowled as she looked between Naruto and Kin. That funking hussy. How dare she? Kin smirked and said, Kinsui. And you're Naruto Uzumaki. I'm looking forward to spending some quality time with you later. See you around, handsome. And with that, she and her teammates left, deciding they could get at Sasuke another time. Once they were gone, Naruto sighed as he went about dismantling his traps. You all can come out now. I know you've been watching us. Teams 10 and 9 came out of hiding and approached the duo. Damn you, Naruto. You were just going to let them kill Sasuke-kun, weren't you? Ino accused, clearly pissed off. Sakura sighed and decided to head things off before Ino could say any more. Ino pig, I suggest you go and have a look at Sasuke for yourself. I had a look at a certain something earlier and I can safely say this. Sasuke can't get it up. And he's small. There's no way he'll be able to restore his clan. He's pretty much impotent. Naruto-kun on the other hand, she said, motioning towards Naruto's tent. Tenten blushed as she looked at Naruto's weapon. How the hell is that thing still that hard? Why won't it go down? Naruto groaned and palmed his face. Let's just say today's not my day, okay? It's hard as a rock and I can't fucking do anything about it. And it's not like you girls will help me deal with it. Right? Tenten just continued to stare at his rock-hard beep with an ever-worsening blush on her face. Maybe just a little. Wait, no. I didn't mean that. Oh crap. Come on Neji, Lee, let's get the hell out of here before I say or do something I regret. She exclaimed before turning and leaping away into the trees, her teammates chasing after her moments later. Ino decided to check for herself whether what Sakura said was true or not. So while she did that, Shikamaru looked at Naruto and asked, just what the hell were you and Sakura doing in there anyways to cause this problem? Or do I even want to know? Naruto deadpanned at him and said, we were talking about rainbows and cute little puppies. What the hell do you think we were doing, you lazy baka? If we weren't interrupted, I wouldn't have this problem. Sakura blushed badly as Shikamaru and Choji turned their gazes on her. What? Have you seen how big he is? That's the kind of beep a girl needs in her life. Sakura exclaimed before giggling pervertedly. The two boys blushed deeply and tried to will such images away. They were all interrupted in their conversation, however, as Ino's scream pierced the air around them. The hell? Naruto asked as they approached the burrow. When she came rushing out in a panic, Sakura asked, what the hell's the matter, Ino? It's Sasuke. You were right, he's a funking shrinky dinky. But more than that, he's cold to the touch. I think he's dying, you guys. You need to get him to the tower pronto. We've got some extra scrolls. We'll give you whatever you need. Just hurry and get him some help. Ino exclaimed. Naruto scowled at this and hurried in to check on Sasuke. Sure enough, his body was growing cold. Shit. This can't be good. He said before lifting Sasuke into his arms. Leaving the burrow, he looked at the others and nodded in thanks for the scroll. Afterwards, he and Sakura leapt off towards the tower. Naruto sent numerous shadow clones in all directions to distract everyone so they wouldn't run into any opposition along the way. Don't you funking die on me before we get to the tower and through into the next stage, you funking team. I'd very much like to make it through to the juicy bits of the exams. Yes, Naruto cared more about passing the exams than his own teammate. Hero of the year people. Upon arriving, Sakura unrolled the scrolls and tossed them away from them, watching as Orika appeared via a type of summoning technique. Rather than let him go on with his spiel, Naruto scowled at him and asked, do we pass or not? In case you haven't noticed, Sasuke needs immediate medical attention. He's literally dying as we speak. Eyes widening in horror, Orika nodded and said, yes, you pass. Hurry, give him to me. I'll get him to the hospital wing and get him some help. Just tell me what the hell happened. Naruto looked to Sakura, who nodded in response to him. Looking towards Orika, she said, our team got separated in the forest. Sasuke and I fell under attack by a foreign shinobi. I don't know who she was, but she bit Sasuke's neck and left some strange mark on his neck. After that, this happened. Nodding once in understanding, Orika said, there's rooms on the upper floors of the tower. Go find one and relax for the time being. I'll see what we can do to help Sasuke. Take care, okay? And with that, he was gone, leaving the duo to make their way into the tower and find the rooms on their own. Sighing heavily as they walked along in search of the rooms, Naruto shook his head and said, well, that pretty much killed the mood. Good news. Boner's gone away. Bad news. Boner's gone away. Sakura giggled a bit before sidling up next to him and nibbling on his ear for a moment. I think I can bring it back. Once we find a room, I think I know exactly how to stimulate you, my handsome, sexy Naruto-kun. Naruto smirked at her and said, I am loving the sight of you, Sakura-chan. I don't care what Orika-chan says or thinks, I'm definitely bringing you with me. Smirking at him, she leaned in and kissed him sweetly on the lips. Good. Because I wasn't about to let you leave without me. She said before they came upon an empty room. Shrugging, they were about to go inside when the team from Odo walked up to them. Letting out simultaneous groans, they motioned for the Odo genin to follow them into the room. Naruto-kun and I won't be getting that fun time anytime soon. Bulldosu and Zaku took a couple of chairs, Sakura seated herself on one of the beds while Kin, being ever the bold one, sat on Naruto's lap and began grinding her wonderful rear end against his crotch. When she got the reaction she wanted, she hopped off and sat next to him before leaning in and licking his ear. I bet I can satisfy you in ways she never could. The sexy Kunoichi said in a whisper as she looked at Sakura across the room. Dosu frowned and said, enough. We're not here for that. Naruto, Orika-sama wanted us to kill both Sasuke and Sakura. Are you telling us that you want to keep Sakura alive? Naruto nodded and said, yes. I want you to inform Orika-chan that Sakura-chan is coming with us when we leave the village. She's already declared her desire to me to leave the village and join us in Atogakure. I would like you to relay this information to Orika-chan. Please. Before anyone could say anything else, Zaku spoke up with a bewildered look on his face. Wait, she actually allows you to call her Orika-chan. The hell makes you so special? Kin smirked at Zaku at this point before she flicked Naruto's heart on. I'd say this plays a role in it. Naruto-kun here is something special, alright. But seriously, you really don't know anything, do you Zaku? Didn't you know that Orika-sama's been keeping tabs on Naruto-kun here for all these years? He's the reason she's risking an invasion, after all. Naruto and Sakura both blinked in shock at this piece of information. Invasion? Say what now? Naruto asked. Dosu sighed and said, it's better if you don't know for now, Naruto-san. Just know that it's a means to an end. I promise you that we'll get you and your girlfriend out of Konoha and back to the safety of Atogakure. You have my word. Okay. Naruto nodded in thanks. I appreciate it. Question though. Was Orika-chan's curse mark supposed to kill Sasuke? Cause he's, dying. Their eyes widened as they heard this. After a time though, Zaku began to chuckle before it evolved into full-blown laughter. When he finally calmed down, he said, wow, that asshole's weaker than I thought. I know the curse mark kills like 1 in 10 people, but I didn't expect it'd kill that asshole. For all of his supposed superiority, he sure turned out to be a pathetic little piece of shit, didn't he? Dosu sighed and massaged the bridge of his nose. I'm not sure if that's a good thing or a bad thing right now. Orika-sama did want him dead, but I think she would have preferred it if he at least lived for a little while longer. To think he'd be done in by her curse mark. Wow. Naruto sighed and rubbed his forehead tiredly. Just so long as the Hokage doesn't try to disqualify Sakura-chan and me, because we don't have our third teammate with us. We passed the second stage of the exams, so he has no reason to disqualify us now. Sakura frowned deeply and asked, he wouldn't really disqualify us simply because Sasuke isn't with us, would he? Naruto deadpanned at her and said, of course he would. Sasuke's the only one that's ever mattered on our team to anyone. The two of us were just a footnote in the great book that is Sasuke's life. And if he tries to disqualify us when we were already informed that we passed, I'm calling him out on his bullshit. If nothing else, it'll get teams from the other villages on our side. Hopefully he won't have any choice but to allow us to continue. Dosu frowned and nodded his head in understanding. Besides that, Naruto's a Jinchuriki. Most likely, Hiruzen Sarutobi and the powers that be view him as nothing more than a weapon. One they want to keep on a tight leash. Weapons like Jinchuriki aren't meant to advance in rank and make something of themselves. They're meant for conquest or to defend a village in times of war. Sakura frowned sadly and said, that's not fair. Naruto-kun deserves so much better than that. Kin nodded in agreement. Agreed. That's why we're going to rescue him and you from this horrible village and bring you to someplace you both belong. For now though, turning Naruto's head to face her, she leaned in and captured his lips with hers. I'm looking forward to when we get to be alone together. She said before she and her teammates stood up and left the room. Once they were gone, Naruto groaned and massaged his temples. I swear, I need to have sex soon or I'm going to lose my funking mind. Sakura smirked at him and walked over to him. Straddling him, she began rubbing herself against his erect member. I'm more than willing to give you what you need, Naruto-kun. All you have to do is ask. She said, leaning in and capturing his lips with hers. However. Right as Naruto slid his hands down her back and gripped her ass firmly in his hands, there came a knock on their door. Leaning back, Naruto let out a scream of pure rage before shouting, fine. Come in. Goddammit. When the door opened and in walked Hiruzen Sarutobi with Orika and Kakashi behind him, it was to see Naruto and Sakura sitting side by side, their hands nearly touching. I'm sorry, are we interrupting something? Hiruzen asked, sounding somewhat amused. Naruto grumbled a little as he willed his erection down. Nothing at all. So what's up? Hiruzen sat down on the bed across the room from them, while Orika and Kakashi both took the chairs Dosu and Zaku had sat in earlier. I'm going to get straight to the point. Sasuke-kun is in grave condition. What the hell happened out there in the forest? Naruto sighed heavily and said, I honestly don't know for sure. I separated from the group because I had to, relieve myself. I'd been holding it in all day and I really had to go. Shortly afterwards, I got attacked by another team. When I finally caught up with Sakura-chan and Sasuke, I found Sasuke like that and Sakura-chan worrying over him. I have no idea what the hell happened out there. Sakura nodded and said, when Naruto went to do his business, Sasuke and I were hit by a powerful blast of wind. When we came to, we were under attack by a woman. I don't know who she was or what she wanted with us, but she easily defeated me and then bit Sasuke on the neck, leaving some weird mark on his neck. Then she left. Sasuke's been like that ever since. At first he seemed to just be in pain, but later it's like he's dying or something. The three adults easily noticed the lack of the kun suffix attached to Sasuke's name, but didn't make any mention of it. Crushes came and went, after all. Instead, Kakashi looked to the Hokage and asked, do you think it's her, Hokage-sama? Hiruzen sighed and rubbed his forehead for a time. Yes. It looks like Anko's curse seal, only more advanced. I'd say it's Orika's handiwork. Looking at Naruto and Sakura, he said, you two got very lucky that Orika didn't kill you. She's one of my old students and she absolutely cannot be trusted. She's one of this village's biggest traitors and she will not hesitate to kill anyone that gets in the way of what she wants. I just hope Sasuke-kun can survive this. Sakura frowned deeply and asked, do you think he'll be okay to participate in the next stage of the exams? What if he's not better by then? Orika smiled at them and said, you've already passed the second stage of the exams, so no matter what, you'll be moving on. As for Sasuke, we'll have to wait and see. Right, Hokage-sama. Hiruzen frowned for a moment before sighing. Somewhat reluctantly, he said, yes. They've passed and therefore are moving on to the final stage of the exams. They have earned that right. Naruto and Sakura smiled slightly and gently grasped one another's hands at their small victory, earned thanks to Iruka's kindness. Afterwards, they looked at the Hokage, and Naruto asked, what will happen if Sasuke dies? The village worships the guy. Hiruzen sighed heavily and shook his head. I'm more worried about what his brother, Itachi, will do when he learns his brother was killed by Orika's curse mark. He might take his rage out on the village or he might turn his rage on Orika. If Sasuke-kun dies, Itachi would be the only one left with the possibility of restoring the Uchiha clan. After what he's done, I don't know if I can just give him a full pardon, just so we can get him to impregnate a few willing women. Kakashi frowned at this and asked, you can't be seriously considering pardoning Itachi for his crimes. I know Sasuke dying would crush the dreams of restoring the Uchiha clan after what happened, but to pardon Itachi? That's just going too far. Before Hiruzen could say anything more, Naruto spoke up. If you really want to revive the Uchiha clan so badly and you're worried that Sasuke's going to die, then why not just extract some sperm from his balls and get some willing women to carry his children? Wouldn't that work just as well? Hiruzen and the others blinked a few times before Hiruzen stood up, approached Naruto, and shook his hands. Thank you my boy, you are a genius. I do believe we'll do just that. We'll just leave you two alone for now. Do be careful and please don't try to leave the tower. There's a cafeteria on the first floor if you get hungry and or thirsty. Now, we must be off. Take care, you two. He said before hurrying out of the room with Iruka and Kakashi following him. As soon as they were gone, Naruto fell back on the bed and groaned. In talking about Sasuke and sperm has completely drained my sex drive for the day. Sorry Sakura-chan, but I don't think I can give you what you want today. Tomorrow, maybe. Sakura simply cuddled up next to him and gave him a loving kiss on the lips. Tomorrow sounds fine to me. Trust me, I understand. My mood was killed by that talk as well. Yuck. For a while, Naruto and Sakura simply cuddled together until the pink-haired teen fell asleep in his arms. Looking at her, he gently stroked her hair for a time before he removed himself from her embrace and climbed out of bed. Stepping out of the room, he looked into the disguised Orika's eyes and followed her to a private room. Did you get my message? He questioned. Orika turned to him and nodded once. Yes. Are you absolutely sure you want to bring that girl? She was so abusive to you. I was planning to just have her killed. Naruto shook his head and said, I care about her, Orika-chan. I saved Sakura-chan from a bunch of bullies when we were younger. Her parents are the ones that turned her against me, but I never gave up on her. Now that her eyes have been opened, she wants to leave with me. And I'm telling you now, I'm not leaving without her. So can you bring her with us or not? The older woman sighed and closed her eyes, thinking it over in her mind. Fine. I can bring her along. But if she tries to hurt you again in any way. Naruto smiled at Orika and hugged her close. She won't. I promise, Orika-chan. She'll be good. And she wants to learn to be a proper kunoichi. A strong one too. She has the potential to be something great if given the chance. Leaning into his embrace, Orika listened to his heartbeat for a time, allowing it to calm her nerves. Fine then. She can come. I'll make sure she becomes a kunoichi worthy of your friendship, perhaps even your trust and love. But for now, looking into his eyes, she pressed her lips to his, kissing him hungrily for a time. When they parted, she smirked at him and asked, "What's this I hear about Sasuke dying?" Naruto chuckled a bit and said, "It's that curse mark you gave him. I don't think he's going to live for much longer. He'll be stubborn and try to participate in the next part of the exams, no doubt, but I can't see him surviving for much longer. It's really kind of funny in a way." Orika simply hummed contentedly. "That it is. It serves him right for how he's treated you. I can't wait to take you back with me to Otogakur. You'll be so happy there. I've got some gifts I want to give you too. But I can't do that here, unfortunately. Still, there is one thing I can do for you right now, if you want." Naruto chuckled softly and kissed her again. "Sadly, I'm not really in the mood at the moment. Just had a talk earlier with the Hokage about Sasuke and his sperm, and it just sapped my sex drive of all its energy. I've got nothing left in the tank." "Yes, I could see how that would do it. Perhaps another time then, when we can be truly alone. Besides, our first time shouldn't just be some quickie. It should be something special, something marvelous. For now, you should go and get some rest. We'll talk again later." "Of course. See you later, Orika-chan," Naruto said before parting from her and returning to his room. As he walked away, Orika couldn't help but admire his ass, which caused him to chuckle a bit. "And I thought men were perverts. Orika-chan and Sakura-chan could really give most men a run for their money." Days later, Naruto, Sakura, and the other teams that had passed the second stage of the exams were now gathered in an arena of sorts, located in the center of the first floor of the tower. It was a rather spacious room with a balcony located up above, two giant stone hands forming a hand seal, and a throne of sorts that the Hokage was seated in. Glancing around, he saw Orika, once more disguised as the Odo team sensei, but didn't make any sign that he recognized her. Instead, he turned his gaze to his last teammate, one Sasuke-chan. Sasuke should have been resting, but he insisted that he was just fine and demanded that he be allowed to participate in the third round of the Chunin exams. He looked incredibly pale and weak, and Naruto wondered how the hell he was even standing right now. Shaking those thoughts off, he glanced around at the other teams. There was a team from Kumagakure that consisted of a dark-skinned male and female duo, as well as a big brass-beaked blonde woman. There was the team from Otogakur, and when he looked at them, Kin winked at him. If she could have, he swore she would have flashed him one of her brass beeps. Continuing to look around, he saw Kiriko's team. When he looked at her, the slightly older woman smiled at him and waved, happy to see he made it through the forest of death okay. There were also teams 7 through 10 from Konohagakure. Finally, there was the team of genin from Sunagakure, consisting of Temari, Kankuro, and their younger sister, a girl by the name of Gaia. She had long flowing red hair, a tattoo above her left eye of the kanji for the word love, dark rings around her eyes like a raccoon's, lovely pink lips, and beautiful green eyes. She stood slightly shorter than Naruto did, and when he looked at her, she simply stared right back at him, almost as if she was curious about him for some reason. Shrugging it off, Naruto turned his attention back to the Hokage as he began to give his speech. As he rambled on and on, Naruto kept an eye on Sasuke, who began to wobble slightly on his feet. "Might want to hurry up, you old geezer. I don't think Sasuke's going to last much longer." When the Hokage finally finished talking, the next proctor made his appearance and asked if anyone would like to quit. When nobody did, they watched as a screen of sorts emerged from the wall up above them and began to cycle through names. When it landed on Sasuke Uchiha and Yoroi Akato, everyone but those two vacated the floor, venturing up to the various senseis. Sakura looked from Sasuke to Kakashi and asked, is Sasuke going to be okay?" Kakashi sighed and shook his head. "I honestly don't know, Sakura. I really don't know." As soon as the proctor announced the beginning of the match, Sasuke took a single step forward before falling flat on his face. When the proctor checked for a pulse, he looked up at the Hokage with wide eyes and said, "He's dead, Hokage-sama. I guess that makes Yoroi Akato the victor by default. What do we do now?" he questioned, clearly not sure what they should do about Sasuke's sudden death. Naruto simply blinked a couple of times before he burst out into laughter. Almost everyone looked at him like he was batshit insane for laughing about his teammate's death, but he didn't give a crap. Oh man. This is too great. The great Sasuke Uchiha going out not with a bang, but a silent whimper. I love it. All he could do was continue to laugh as the Hokage and the others tried to figure out what to do with Sasuke's body and his Sharingan eyes. Oh, things had taken an interesting turn indeed. When Naruto finally calmed down, he saw that Sasuke's body was being carried away carefully, almost reverently. Frowning slightly at that, he soon shook it off and shot a quick glance at the Hokage. I wonder if Orika-chan could use those eyes of his. Maybe she could figure out how to get to his body. Oh well, who cares? Let's see who's up next. Looking at the board as it cycled through the names, he saw that neither of them were his name. Frowning slightly, he looked back down at the arena to see Misumi Tsurugi and Zaku Apumi were up this time. So, 2 Odo shinobi, one disguised as a Konoha shinobi, are duking it out now. This should be amusing to watch. Zaku smirked beepily at Misumi and decided to play his part to the best of his abilities. He knew Misumi was on his side, but he also knew he couldn't let anyone catch onto their affiliation with one another. So he simply chuckled and said, you know, if you were smart, you'd forfeit this match right now. I'm going to tear right through you and make my way into the finals. Misumi would have chanced to glance at the disguised Orika, but he didn't want the Hokage catching on to the fact that he had an affiliation with a Togaker just yet. Instead, he said, it's always the beepy ones that die first, you know. Hayate looked between them for a moment before he announced the beginning of the match. Before Misumi had a chance to act, Zaku had already used his decapitating airwaves attack on him. Misumi dodged by rolling out of the way, but Zaku was upon him, unleashing another decapitating airwaves from point-blank range, causing him to not only go flying into the wall, but for his ears to start bleeding as well. He was disoriented and wobbling on his feet, but he still stood tall and prepared to unleash his own attack on Zaku. Seeing the state his opponent was in caused Zaku to frown. Sighing, he quickly moved in and knocked Misumi out with a fist to the man's stomach, causing him to lurch before collapsing to the ground, quickly fading into unconsciousness. As soon as the match was over, Hayate announced Zaku the winner of their match. Afterwards, the Odo Genin returned to his team and scowled. He should have just given up. Orika nodded her head and said, true, but you are bound to run into stubborn shinobi like that from time to time. It's best to be patient and try to end the fight quickly before things can get too much worse for either side. Now hush, let's see who's up next. Tenten vs Kuriko Yakushi. As Tenten went down into the arena to await her opponent, Kuriko walked up to Naruto and kissed him on the cheek. Wish me luck, Naruto-kun. The silver-haired girl said before walking past him. However, she stopped to give his butt a pinch, giggling when he jumped. Tenten couldn't help but eye her opponent curiously as she entered the arena. Kuriko had short silver hair that was somewhat messy, and yet it looked strangely good and appealing on her. Kuriko wore glasses over her onyx-colored eyes and had a strange, almost sinister smile on her face. She was taller than Tenten by a few inches, and her brace beeps were rather large, being an obvious DD cup, maybe even larger. She wore a tan shirt and purple pants, both of which hugged her alluring form quite well, and yet provided enough room so that her movement wouldn't be restricted in any way. Kuriko couldn't help but smirk knowingly at Tenten when she was finished checking her out. Finished checking me out yet? I'd like to begin our match. Tenten blushed a bit and said, don't say it like that. Geez. Fine, I'm ready to start the match, Proctor. Hayate nodded and announced the match before leaping away. Without a word, Tenten quickly unrolled a scroll and sent a wide assortment of weapons flying at her opponent. When Kuriko didn't move, the bun-haired girl raised a brow in curiosity, but didn't relent in her attack. Instead, just to be safe, she unleashed another scroll full of weapons on Kuriko from behind her. Kuriko simply stared apathetically at all the weapons flying towards her at high speed. After a moment, she acted, slipping through the weapons as quickly and fluidly as she could. Yes, she still received numerous cuts and bruises from the various weapons, but at least she hadn't been turned into a human pincushion. Turning towards Tenten, she smiled as her wounds began to heal slowly, but surely. Lifting up a hand, she used her medical ninjutsu to speed up the recovery process. I'm sorry Tenten, but you'll have to do better than that if you want to defeat me, perhaps even kill me. But I don't think I'll give you the time you need to attack me again. I apologize in advance for the harm I'm about to inflict upon you. Tenten's eyes widened when Kuriko came at her with chakra scalpels activated in her hands. Quickly dodging left and right, leaping backwards, and dodging to the side once more, Tenten reached for another scroll, only to wince when Kuriko hit her with one of her scalpels, causing her right arm to fall limp at her side. Screaming in pain, she was completely unprepared for Kuriko's next attack that severed her Achilles tendon in both of her legs. Seeing as her opponent could no longer move to dodge her attacks, Kuriko deactivated her techniques before pressing a kunai against Tenten's throat. As I said, I apologize for the pain I had to inflict upon you. Please forfeit. Tenten glanced over at the proctor and said, I forfeit. I can't fight anymore. As the proctor announced her victory, Kuriko healed Tenten to the best of her ability before allowing the medics to carry her away. Sighing softly, she rose to her feet again and walked up the stairs to the balcony once again. However, this time she stopped in front of Naruto and grinned at him. So Naruto-kun, how do you think I did? Naruto smiled at her and said, you fought well Kiri-chan. Congratulations on your victory. I was worried about you for a moment there. Giggling a bit, Kiriko soon surprised him by pressing herself against him and kissing him deeply on the lips. When she parted from him, she licked her lips. Leaning in close, she whispered, "I'm definitely looking forward to getting you alone sometime, Naruto-kun." Nodding slowly, Naruto watched as Kiriko walked away to rejoin her team. As she walked, he couldn't help but admire her butt for a time before turning his attention to Sakura and Kakashi, who were looking at him with looks of confusion and amusement. "So, found yourself a little girlfriend, have you, Naruto?" Kakashi asked. The blonde simply shrugged and said, "Who knows? Anything can happen." "Indeed." Kakashi said, choosing to focus on the board as it began cycling through names once again. Sakura Haruno vs Ino Yamanaka. Seeing her name on the board, as well as the name of her opponent, Sakura smirked devilishly before turning to Naruto, grabbing him by the back of the head and kissing him deeply, just as Kiriko had. Afterwards, without a word, she turned and sauntered off, knowing Naruto was left in a daze while he watched her ass. She knew her ass was great and she loved the idea of Naruto focusing on it like this. Left with Kakashi, the silver-haired pervert raised his only visible eyebrow and asked, "What the hell happened with you out there? You've suddenly become popular with the ladies and even won over Sakura. I must have missed something big." Naruto sighed and just watched the two girls down in the arena. "Is it really that shocking, sensei? After all, I think I happen to be quite the charmer," he asked with a smirk on his face. "I'll have to check to see if pigs are flying when we return to the village proper," Kakashi said drolly. The whiskered teen scowled but didn't comment on his sensei's sarcasm. "Screw you, beep face. You'll get what's coming to you soon enough, just you watch." When the proctor announced the beginning of the match, Sakura looked coldly at Ino before adjusting her headband so it rested comfortably across her forehead. The message was read loud and clear. She viewed Ino as beneath her in this moment. Scowling, Ino decided to ignore Sakura's actions and charge forward, swinging a fist at Sakura's face. The pinket slapped aside Ino's fist, then slammed her forehead against Ino's, stunning her. Afterwards, she performed a roundhouse kick that sent Ino to the floor hard, her head bouncing against it roughly. "Get up, Ino. We're going to settle this now. We're going to prove which of us is better. Sasuke's gone now, so we have no reason to try and look good for some boy. We should start taking our training seriously instead of fawning over some prick with a tiny beep. I'm ashamed of myself for being so stupid. You should be too. From now on, we should strive to be the strongest kunoichi in the whole damn world. Now stand up or I'll just keep beating you until the match is called in my favor. I wanted to have a true fight with you and I refuse to let you cop out now because of a few bruises." Ino shakily stood to her feet and leaped away from Sakura, glaring at the pink-haired girl. "A few bruises? You've probably given me a damn concussion with how hard you hit me. But fine." Readjusting her headband, Ino stared hard at Sakura. After a moment, she asked, "So you and Naruto now, huh? How the hell did that happen?" Sakura giggled and said, "Did you see the size of that harden of his? Tell me you wouldn't want a piece of that action." The blonde blushed, as did many of the other women in the room. A few of them chanced to glance at Naruto, only to see him blushing and grumbling to himself. Looking at the pinket, Ino exclaimed, "That's a little too much, Sakura. I mean really? What the hell am I supposed to say to that?" Sakura giggled pervertedly before saying, "That you'd like to go for a ride on that wonderful pecker too. Maybe you'd like to go down on him, show him your skills. I'm sure he'd appreciate everything about you, Ino." Ino's face was so red it could make a tomato jealous. "Can we not talk about that? Please let's just get back to the fight." Glancing at Naruto, Ino blushed worse before quickly shaking her head negatively. "Nope. Not going to think about it." The pink-haired girl giggled more and said, "You totally are. You can't stop yourself from imagining it. Just imagine, he gets you alone, kisses you, taking your breath away. Then he starts kissing your neck, your collarbone, rips off your top because it's in the way. Kissing you down your chest, softly caressing your brace beeps while his other hand slides up under your skirt, rubbing you through your soaked panties. You begging him for more." Before Sakura could say any more, Ino practically had smoke pouring out of her ears as she shouted, "Okay. Enough already. You don't need to paint a picture for everybody." Okami giggling pervertedly, Ino soon fainted, unable to handle the overload on her brain. They blinked a couple of times before looking at the Hokage. Do we call it a Sakura's victory? I'm confused." Hiruzen blinked as well, not quite sure how to react to everything that had just happened. The scene Sakura had just described blew anything Jiraiya could ride out of the water. If there weren't so many women around, he would be giggling like a pervert right now with blood dripping out of his nose. After taking a moment to get himself under control, the Hokage nodded at Hade. "It's an unorthodox strategy and one that shouldn't normally work, but it can certainly be effective when used right. Sakura's the victor." Heiichi shrugged and said, well then, you heard Hokage-sama. Sakura is the victor. Can someone collect Ino, please? Asuma sighed and dropped down to the arena, lifting Ino into his arms. Chancing a glance at Sakura, he asked, was that really necessary? Sakura simply grinned at him and asked, oh. Is someone feeling a little jealous? Don't worry, I'm sure someone will still get a kick out of being with you. Naruto-kun's the only one for me though. And with that, she skipped off, up the stairs, right back to Naruto. Asuma scowled at being insulted in such a way, but he let the matter go for now. Instead, he returned to his team and laid Ino down. Damn that girl. He muttered under his breath. Shikamaru sighed as he looked at his sensei. Don't let it get to you, Asuma-sensei. One thing I've learned about girls is that they're all troublesome in some way. Just the Nara air froze as he felt killing intent wash over him, causing him to freeze in place. Slowly, ever so slowly, he chanced to glance at the other women in the room and saw them glaring at him for his comment. Chuckling nervously, he said, sorry. Won't happen again. Back with Naruto, he blushed when Sakura openly rubbed his crotch through his pants in front of everyone until he was hard as a rock. Quickly grabbing her hand to make her stop, he sighed and said, please stop. I get it, you're feeling kinda frisky and want to play a little. But do you have any idea how hard it'll be to fight with a freaking harden? Sakura simply giggled before kissing his cheek. Afterwards, she brought her lips against his ear and whispered, just imagine funking me right here in front of all these people. That would certainly relieve the tension you're feeling, wouldn't it? You could take me right here and nobody could stop us. I know you want it just as bad as I do, if not more. Now don't complain. Naruto sighed and said, as much fun as that would be, I could be up at any time. We'll talk about this later. Kakashi simply smiled in amusement at Naruto's current predicament. However, he couldn't help but compare himself to Naruto and realized that Naruto certainly had him beat. The hell did he do to earn something big like that? Perry versus Temari. Once the two kunoichi had entered the arena, Naruto stepped up to the railing so he could watch what was sure to be a good fight. After the match was announced, Carrie drew her sword and immediately ran lightning through her blade. However, the moment she went to attack, Temari opened her fan to the first moon and unleashed a wind jutsu at her, forcing her to block with her sword. Naturally, as wind beat lightning in the elemental wheel, if you will, the lightning was cancelled out. Gritting her teeth and ignoring the pain, Carrie quickly dashed towards her opponent, only to be blasted with another gust of wind that sent her skidding back into the wall. Funk. She exclaimed angrily as she tried to push through the pain and the jutsu itself in an effort to get at the wind-using bitch. Temari smirked, realizing early on that Carrie was a close-range fighter. She wasn't sure if Carrie could fight a ranged combatant like herself, but seeing her struggling just to put up a fight helped her realize that the Redeed from Kumo really had no way to counter opponents like herself. So, opening her fan to the third moon, she unleashed a massive flurry of wind that left numerous small cuts on Carrie's skin before sending her flying into the wall again, screaming in agony. Before Carrie could stand, Temari was there with a kunai pressed against her throat. Please forfeit. I don't want to kill you if I can help it. Carrie gritted her teeth angrily for a moment before she nodded slightly. Proctor, I forfeit. I have no way to beat my opponent at this time. When Temari removed the kunai from her neck, the beautiful Redeed said, thank you for showing me an area I need to improve in. I won't survive if I can't adapt. Temari simply smiled at her and said, no worries. You might want to let a medic look you over though. You know, get all those cuts taken care of. If it helps any, I think you'll only get stronger and stronger. I'm looking forward to it. Carrie smiled and shook Temari's hand. Afterwards, she led a medic leader away to get examined and hopefully healed. Naruto Uzumaki versus Kiba in Izuka. Woohoo. We've got an easy one, partner. I bet I won't even need your help to beat this pathetic loser. Kiba said arrogantly as he leapt down into the arena. Naruto smirked to himself as he looked down at Kiba. Oh, this is going to be fun. Naruto said evilly. Looking at Sakura, he snaked a hand around behind her and grasped her butt firmly in his hand. Giving it a nice squeeze, he whispered to her, make sure to watch carefully, Sakura-chan. I want you to see just how outclassed this asshole is. Sakura giggled and nodded her head in understanding as Naruto leapt down into the arena as well. Once the match was started, she sighed when Kakashi decided to question her. Just what is going on between the two of you? I think I have a right to know as your sensei. The pink-haired girl glanced at her sensei and said, you didn't take any interest in us before Sasuke died. Why are you so interested in what we do with each other now, of all times? And for the record, we don't have to tell you anything. It's private between the two of us. Now hush, I want to watch my sexy stud kick that mutt's ass. Kakashi frowned deeply, but didn't say anything more. Instead, he decided to keep an eye on the fight and see if he could learn a little more about the blonde Jinchuriki. As the match was started, Naruto smirked evilly at Kiba and activated the same technique Kiriko had used in her fight. The chakra scalpels. Naturally, this shocked everyone in the room, besides those in the know. Come here, dog breath, I want to tear you apart. Maybe I'll take an eye out. Perhaps go a little further south and give you a nice all snip snip, if you know what I mean. Destroy your vocal cords, perhaps. Oh, there are so many ways I could destroy you, Kiba. You just don't know how outclassed you truly are here. Akamaru began to whimper in fright, worrying Kiba. Looking down at his friend, he asked, "What's wrong, Akamaru?" Receiving a couple of barks in response, the arrogant Inyazuka scoffed and said, "You've got to be kidding me, Akamaru. This idiot's screwed. Just you watch. But if you're so afraid to fight him, I'll handle him alone, without you." Oh, you should have listened to your pup, dog breath. Akamaru knows the truth. He's a smart one. Because I like him, I won't hurt him. But you? Oh, I'm going to enjoy tearing you apart. Naruto said before he vanished and reappeared at Kiba's side. Quickly touching a point in Kiba's arm, he watched as it fell limp at his side. Before Kiba could even scream out in pain, Naruto tapped him in the back of his waist, severing his spine. When Kiba collapsed to the ground, crying in pain, Naruto knelt down and slowly took out one of Kiba's eyes. Looking it over for a moment, he turned it around to look at the feral boy before saying, "Squishy." And popping Kiba's eye right in front of him. Finally, he snaked his hand lower towards Kiba's crotch, causing him to cry out, "I forfeit. Just make it stop." Oh. Pooey. I guess playtime's over then. Naruto said before stepping back, allowing medics to hurry out to pick up Kiba. If you hurry, you can still reconnect the muscle, tissue, etc. in his lower back and in his arm. He'll be sore for a while, but there won't be any lasting damage. Aside from the eye, of course. Do take care of him, please. Shakily announced Naruto as the winner of the match. Nobody had expected Naruto to be so cruel, even somewhat psychotic in his fight against Kiba. If you could even call such a thing a true fight. Naruto utterly wrecked Kiba without ever giving him a chance to fight back. It was ruthless, cruel, and some might even say downright evil of him. Still, it was an effective means of defeating his opponent and moving on into the finals. When Naruto returned to his team, he grabbed Sakura's butt again before kissing her fiercely on the lips. "So, what did you think, Sakura-chan?" The Pincat grinned wickedly and whispered back, "I'm so damn hot for you right now. I'd love to just take you for a ride, but we have certain nuisances to deal with first. Such as Kakashi Baka." Naruto sighed and nodded his head as he released Sakura's fine ass. "Yes, Kakashi?" he asked, sounding a little frustrated. "Where did you learn how to do that? And how could you be so cruel to a fellow shinobi of Konoha?" Kakashi demanded. "I learned it from a friend. She taught me when you wouldn't. After all, you were always too busy playing hide-the-mole with Sasuke." "Oh wait, you called it training. I forgot. Tell me, just how often did the two of you sneak off to fornicate, Kakashi? Were you the uke or the seam? Maybe a switch. Then again, Sasuke couldn't exactly get it up, could he? Must be a natural thing then, having uke in his name and all. Too bad for you that he's up and died on you. No more butt bandits for you." Naruto taunted. Kakashi gawked in shock, barely able to believe Naruto had just said all of that to him. Hardly anybody else could believe it either. After his words registered, a number of the other shinobi began to laugh at Kakashi, unable to hold it in. The cycloptic Jonin, however, was furious. Before he could lash out at Naruto in any way, the Hokage hit him with a blast of concentrated killing intent. Looking his way, the silver-haired man saw the Hokage shaking his head at him, signaling him to stand down and behave. Grumbling irritably, Kakashi did just that and chose to bury his nose in his book. Sasuke may be dead, but his other two students had made it through quite easily. He supposed that earned him some bragging rights, even if he didn't do jack to teach either of them anything. But that out of the way, Naruto wrapped an arm around Sakura and held her close, grinning at her. "Well, since we've both progressed into the finals, I guess we might as well stick around and see what the others have to show us. Should be entertaining, don't you think?" Sakura nodded in agreement. "Definitely. I want to see what the others can really do. Though I wouldn't mind sneaking off and playing a little too," she whispered back. "Gaia versus Samui." Samui frowned as she stood across from her opponent. Gaia looked like she never got any sleep, judging on the way her face looked. She was still cute, there was no denying that, but the redeed just didn't look right to her. Getting a good look at her opponent, she remembered what Kiriko had read off from her info cards before the first stage of the exams. She's never been injured. I'll have to change that somehow. If only I knew what her abilities were, I could think of some way to counter them. Guess I'll have to play it cool and gauge her reactions. Maybe I'll be able to figure something out then. Gaia, meanwhile, was more focused on Naruto than on her opponent for this match. Something about him interested her, extremely so. She just couldn't put her finger on what it was exactly that made him so special, but she wanted to know more. Her thoughts were derailed, however, when hate started the match. Without a word, Gaia shot the cork of her gourd at Samui, who quickly smacked it out of the air, watching as it turned to sand. I have no interest in you. I want him. Gaia said, motioning with her head towards Naruto. If you don't want to die, I suggest you forfeit. Samui frowned and said, it's uncool to be thinking about someone else when in a battle like this. Besides, I have no intention of losing to you here, Gaia-san. When Samui drew near with her tanto surrounded by lightning, Gaia's eyes widened slightly in recognition of the fact that said lightning could be very dangerous for her and her sand. Taking a few steps back, she swung her arm and a large wall of sand poured from her gourd and formed a large wall, blocking Samui's attempt at getting to her. Seeing the rather large wall of sand, Samui grimaced and leapt backwards right as it tried to envelop her in a veritable cocoon of sand. When it surged towards her again, she focused on her lightning chakra and, with a swing of her blade, sent lightning shooting through Gaia's sand, rendering it useless to Gaia for the time being. Quickly rushing in close, she took a swing at Gaia, only for the Gaia she struck to turn into a pile of sand that quickly latched onto her ankles. Seeing this, Samui could only mutter one word before she felt nothing but pain. Uncool. Gaia didn't crush Samui's ankles like she could have. No, instead she slammed the blonde into the walls a few times before using her sand to wrap around her opponent, enveloping her in a sand coffin. Please give up. I tire of this. Samui simply nodded before turning to the proctor. I forfeit. I'd rather not die today if I can help it. Pei-8 nodded and watched as Gaia set Samui back on the floor. Releasing her, the Redeed gathered all of her sand again before walking back up onto the balcony. As she started to walk past Naruto, she looked him in the eyes for a time before a small smile crept onto her face. You interest me, Uzumaki. That was all she said before she walked off and rejoined her team. Sakura blinked a couple of times as she looked at Naruto. What does that mean? The blonde simply shrugged his shoulders and said, beats me. Could mean anything, I suppose. Choji Akimichi vs Amoy. Amoy sighed as he stepped down into the arena. His opponent was that fat boy that complained about not knowing what to eat before the second stage of the exams. Honestly, he didn't know what to expect from somebody like that. Still, he wasn't about to drop his guard against the fat teen. Choji, as if sensing that his opponent had called him fat not just once, but twice, hurried down into the arena and glared at his opponent. You were just thinking I'm fat, weren't you? He asked angrily as Hade announced the start of the fight. Amoy frowned in confusion for a time before nodding. Yes. Aren't you fat, though? Or am I mistaken and you're just big-boned? No, that can't be the case, can it? With how much you eat, you're definitely overweight, like a pig. But you'll get angry at being called that and come at me like a stampede of rhinos. I'll fight back but. Before Amoy could ramble anymore, Choji screamed in outrage before activating two of his clan's techniques, turning him into a veritable human boulder. As his opponent came barreling towards him, the silver-haired teen drew his sword and braced himself against Choji's onslaught. Blocking Choji's initial attack, which caused him to start sliding backwards from the sheer force Choji was putting behind his technique, Amoy soon forced Choji away before swinging his blade a few times, sending a couple arcs of lightning shooting towards his opponent. When Choji simply barreled on through them and attacked him again, the Kumo shinobi leapt out of the way of his attack. Figuring that his opponent couldn't possibly make sharp turns to continue with his attack, Amoy let down his guard for a moment as he tried to think of what he could do to win. Sadly for Amoy, Choji spun around quickly and charged towards him yet again. Well should, Amoy said as he began dodging Choji again and again and again until finally he couldn't anymore. As he saw Choji rolling towards him, Amoy closed his eyes and prepared for the worst. Only, it never came. Opening his eyes slowly, he saw Choji was back to normal and he was barely on his feet. In fact, he looked like he was feeling extremely dizzy. Frowning, Amoy came to the realization that constantly spinning like that probably took its toll on his opponent's senses. Breathing a sigh of relief, the swordsman knocked Choji out and smiled when he was named the victor. That was a little too close. Amoy thought to himself nervously as he rejoined his team. Perry simply glared at Amoy and said, you got really lucky there, Amoy. You were about to be a goner. The silver-haired teen nodded and said, tell me about it. I thought I was doomed for sure. Neji Hyuga vs Kinsui. Once both opponents were ready, Hade announced the beginning of the fight. Neji, in all his hubris, smirked at the Odo Kunoichi and said, you should just give up. You were fated to lose to me today. If you give up now, you'll save yourself the humiliation. You're just a no-name Kunoichi from a pathetic village with no real power. You got here on luck alone. Kin simply raised an eyebrow as she secretly began to jingle her bells just loud enough for Neji to and the rest of the room to hear. Raising a few senbon with bells attached to them, she threw them at her opponent, watching as he dodged out of the way and activated his Byakugan. Refusing to let him get in close, knowing just how dangerous Hokage could be, she threw a number of senbon, each with a bell attached to it. Neji scowled as he slowly approached his opponent. His movements felt sluggish to him, and it felt as if he was trying to wade through quicksand. Shaking his head, he couldn't get the sound of those damn bells out of his mind. After a moment, he dropped to his knees and clutched his head in agony. "Make it stop," he screamed out. The Odo Kunoichi simply smirked at the overly arrogant Hyuga before flicking another bell, watching amusedly as Neji passed out moments later. Once she was declared the victor, she looked up at Gaia and said, "Might want to teach this guy some humility. He's way too arrogant for his own good." Afterwards, she collected all of her senbon and bells before returning to her team. "Good work, Kin-chan," Orika said with a smile on her face. "If he's smart, he'll learn from this loss." Then again, the Hyuga pride is strong in him, and he'll likely blame this loss on trickery and whatnot. "Oh well. Thank you, sensei," Kin said, being careful not to reveal Orika's true identity to anyone in the room who might be listening. Shino Aburami vs Kankuro. Naruto was genuinely intrigued by this matchup. They appeared to be evenly matched for a time. At first, Kankuro tried to fool Shino, but that quickly failed when Shino's Kakechu began attacking him through his wrappings. Quickly abandoning that plan, Kankuro leapt away before the blasted bugs could get through to him. It took some doing, but he managed to pry his puppet free from the insects, and they began a fierce duel. Kankuro's puppet versus Shino's Kakechu. Kankuro soon found himself at a disadvantage, however, as the Kakechu kept eating through his chakra strings, rendering him unable to use his favorite puppet. Scowling, he began to control pieces of his puppet, using them to attack Shino from all directions, and even flood the floor they were on with poison gas. With very little room to maneuver properly, Shino was forced to hold his breath for as long as possible, while he fought his opponent. As time went on, both Shino and Kankuro were pushed to their limits, before finally they both collapsed to the ground, unable to continue with the fight. Neither of them was the clear victor of their fight, so Hate was forced to call it a draw, meaning neither of them would advance to the finals. Hinata Hyuga vs Rock Lee. Naruto and Sakura actually felt a bit bad for Hinata right now. After all, they had seen Lee kick Sasuke's ass and then learned that he didn't need to rely on chakra to fight like most others would. He was skilled in jutsu, namely the strong fist jutsu style. Try as she might, Hinata wouldn't be able to win this fight. Lee was fast and oh so strong. Hinata fought her hardest, even managing to dodge Lee's attacks and strike his tenketsu, but nothing she did could bring the green beast down. Then when he dropped his weights and began moving even faster, she was soundly beaten into unconsciousness. Frowning sadly, Naruto and Sakura clapped for her bravery at facing a superior foe and also to congratulate Lee on his victory. Neither of them had to say a word. Shikamaru Nara vs Dosu Kanuta. Shikamaru sighed as he made his way down into the arena. He had already seen through his trick back before the first stage even began, and he had an idea on how to fight back against his opponent. However, he didn't know if he was quick enough to capture Dosu before he could unleash his attack. Frowning deeply as he stood across from Dosu, he eyed the team calmly. This could be tricky. Dosu looked at Shikamaru with his lone eye, almost as if he was searching for something within the Nara's eyes. He could tell Shikamaru was feeling nervous going into this fight, which worked well enough for him. When the match was started, Dosu moved before Shikamaru could finish using his shadow imitation technique. With one punch, Shikamaru was sent crashing into the wall, screaming out in pain. Afterwards, Dosu appeared at his side and used his melody arm to really do some internal damage to Shikamaru. When the Nara air fell to his hands and knees and vomited the contents of his stomach onto the ground, Dosu pressed a kunai up against his throat and said, "Forfeit." Shikamaru groaned as he felt the whole room spinning. Try as he might, he just couldn't focus. Eyesight bleary, he soon gave up trying to find the proctor and closed his eyes. I forfeit. Erg. As Shikamaru fell to the side, thankfully not on the pile of vomit, Hade announced Dosu as the winner. Once Shikamaru was taken to be examined by a medic, Hade called for someone to come clean the floor. After everything had been taken care of, all of the winners lined up side by side on the arena floor, waiting to hear whatever came next. Hiruzen stood up, gave a speech that Naruto and Sakura really didn't give a shit about, and then Anko walked up to them with a box full of numbers. Sakura drew hers first and said, 7. Yorwei drew his next and said, 10. 1. Lee said with a grin on his face. 6. Tamari said, holding up her number for them to see. 8. Kin said simply as she glanced at Sakura. I've got 4. Zaku said with a shrug of his shoulders. I'm 11. Naruto said. 9. Dosu said. Orika held up her number and said, 5. Amoy said, 2. Gaia, realizing she was last, said, that makes me 3. Once everyone had drawn their numbers, Hayate wrote the last name on a board and showed them the tournament brackets. Here's your opponents for the finals of the Chunin Exams. Memorize well who you'll be fighting, who you could end up fighting should you win, and train your hardest to prepare yourself for your upcoming fights. Pay 8 said as the winners looked at who they'd be up against in the finals. Rock Lee vs Samui. Gaia vs Aku Abumi. Kuriko Yakushi vs Tamari. Sakura Haruno vs Kinsui. Osu Kanuta vs Yoroi Akato. Naruto Uzumaki vs winner of match 5. Naruto simply shrugged as he stared at the brackets. Not like I'll be here to participate. I'm leaving this place as soon as Orika-chan can get Sakura-chan and me the hell out of here. Once everyone was dismissed and they all started to be led out of the tower and through the forest of death, Kakashi held Naruto back for questioning. Sakura, refusing to go on ahead without him, stayed behind as well. What do you want, Kakashi? I'd very much like to get out there and start training for the finals. Naruto demanded. Kakashi frowned at the disrespect but didn't comment on it as the Hokage walked up to them. Without a word, he took them to his office so they could speak in private. Once there, he looked at Naruto and Sakura seriously. Naruto-kun, what exactly happened to you in the forest? I've never seen you act so coldly before. First you laughed about your teammate's death and then you tortured Kiba and Yuzuka for no good reason. Just what is going on with you? And you, Miss Haruno, have changed far too quickly. You went from being an Uchiha fangirl to hanging all over Naruto-kun and acting like you want to funk his brains out. Sakura simply smirked at this and said, that's exactly what I want to do, Hokage-sama. I got over Sasuke quickly when he pulled his arrogant emo bullshit with us in the forest of death. Nearly got me killed by Orika because he couldn't keep his damn mouth shut. That, and I got to see what Naruto was packing firsthand, which is something amazing. I think I'm allowed to want to go for a ride on the Naruto train. Hiruzen blushed at the images that were just implanted into his brain. Quickly shaking it off, he turned his attention back to Naruto. Well, that explains her change in behavior. But not yours. What exactly happened to you out there, Naruto-kun? And who taught you how to fight like that? Naruto scowled and shook his head. Like I said before, I learned from a friend when Kakashi here didn't want to teach me anything. Did you know this asshole played favorites the entire time? Sakura-chan and I were just along for the ride. It was all about Sasuke all the damn time. The two of us didn't get any goddamn training from this lazy asshole. It's a miracle we didn't die in the forest of death. So I sought help from a few friends I made in the village. Is that so wrong? Hiruzen frowned as he looked from Naruto to Kakashi. You were trying to honor your teammate's memory, weren't you? What about your duty to Naruto-kun? You know I trusted you to watch after him and it would seem you failed to do that. Kakashi scowled and said, Sasuke needed the training more than these two did. He was special. He deserved. Hiruzen glared at him and shouted, shut the hell up, Hotaki. I'm removing you from your position as Team 7 sensei. You're lucky I still have a use for someone with your talents, otherwise I'd have you demoted to Chunin and forced to watch the gate at all hours of the day. No, you'll be returning to your Anbu duties. Someone else will take over training Naruto and Sakura because you wouldn't bother. Now get out of my sight. Kakashi narrowed his eye at the Hokage, but didn't say another word. Instead, he left, exactly as he had been ordered to do. Now that they were alone, Hiruzen looked calmly into Naruto's eyes and asked, what exactly happened to change you in such a way, Naruto-kun? I'm not sure how to feel about this new you. Naruto sighed heavily and shook his head. Well, for one thing, I'm sexually frustrated. I need to get laid. Have sex. Do the electric boogaloo between the sheets. Fornicate. Whatever the hell you want to call it, I fucking need it. Top that off with some anger management issues directed toward certain pricks in the forest of death and then Kiba being an asshole as usual. Then on top of all of that grumbling, he moved over to the window and raised both of his middle fingers, moving his hands to flip off all of Konoha. Combine all of that with these funking assholes in the village that treat me like shit and I guess I'm a little pissed off. Besides, I could have done so much worse to Kiba. I was about to make him a eunuch. And before you ask about the eye, he can pretend to be a pirate now. Yar matey, shiver me timbers and bring me all the feisty kitties ye can find. It's time I put on a one-legged kitten show. All Hiruzen could do was stare at Naruto dumbfounded. He blinked a couple times and opened his mouth as if to say something, only to close it again a second later. Sakura, meanwhile, was giggling uncontrollably. When he finally regained his mental faculties, he said, I see, wow. I suppose that makes sense. I'll be sure to inform Tsum that her son kind of brought it on himself with his arrogance. Why don't you, Herm, go fornicate? Get all this stress out of your system. It sounds like you could really use a good time. Just be sure to use some kind of protection, okay? Naruto stared at Hiruzen for a moment before saying, thank you. Afterwards, he took Sakura's hand and left the office with her. As soon as he was gone, Hiruzen took out his pipe, fumbled around for a moment and eventually lit it. Taking a long drag, he breathed it in for a moment before releasing it slowly. As it began to calm his nerves, he glanced towards one of his hidden Anbu and said, "Please ensure nobody disturbs Naruto-kun. I'd rather he not kill somebody because they, interrupt him." The hidden Anbu nodded and left to carry out her orders. Once she was gone, Hiruzen glanced towards the window and said, "Come in, Jiraiya. It would seem we need to talk." The tall, white-haired man wearing a headband with the kanji for oil on it stepped into the office and proceeded to sit across from his old sensei. "I can't help but feel the need to ask this. What the funk has happened with my godson?" Hiruzen groaned and said, "We have a lot to talk about. You've neglected your duties to him for too long, and I've done a terrible job of ensuring he grew up like a normal child should have. We both have a lot to make up for, Jiraiya." "Naruto. I noticed you didn't question him when he made mention of your father," Sakura pointed out as she walked through the village arm in arm with her soon-to-be lover. "Why is that?" Naruto sighed and shrugged his shoulders. "Too much crap to deal with in one day. I didn't feel like calling him out on it. Besides, I need sex now. I'm tired of waiting for it. I can only hold it in for so damn long before I start to go insane." "Scrap that, I've already gone insane. You know what? Let's just go to my place and go wild." "Sound good? Cause that sounds fantastic to me." Sakura giggled and said, "Someone's feeling impatient. Are you sure you don't want to go to your parents' home and play around a little there?" "Nah, it'd raise too much suspicion. Could always go to your place, I suppose. Might bother your parents though." Giggling some more, Sakura took his hand in hers and began walking with him towards where she knew his apartment was. "If we want to have some alone time together, we'd best hurry up. Can't have little Naruto suffer any longer, now can we?" Naruto grinned and lifted her into his arms in a bridal carry. When she squeaked, he chuckled and soon ran off with her right to his apartment. As soon as they were inside, however, they sensed someone else in the apartment. When said intruder revealed themselves, they breathed a sigh of relief at seeing Orika standing there. "Orika-chan, what the hell? You had us worried for a moment there." Orika simply giggled as she sauntered up to him and placed a kiss on his lips. "I need a sample of your blood if I'm to get everything you need. But first, I think the three of us need to have a little time alone together. I think you've waited quite long enough, wouldn't you agree?" The blonde nodded and said, "Blood can wait. Sex can't. Need it now," he said lustfully as he kissed Orika again. Sakura, not wanting to be left out, pressed herself against his side and licked his cheek. When she felt his hand grab her remarkable ass and give it a soft squeeze, she smiled happily. Without any more words needing to be said, the three of them hurried to the bedroom and lost their clothes in the process. If it weren't for the silencing seals Orika had put up beforehand, the entire neighborhood would likely have heard the sounds coming from Naruto's bedroom. Moaning, screaming Naruto's name, giggling, sighing in pleasure, and more wonderful sounds echoed throughout his apartment. And all the while, the whiskered blonde was smiling happily, finally able to get what had been denied him for the past, however many days it was. He didn't give a shit anymore, he just enjoyed getting laid. Everything else could wait. Right now, he was content with the way things were and was pleased with the way things were changing. Naruto laid panting on his bed, trying to catch his breath after the amazing time he had just shared with both Sakura and Orika. The three of them were naked, sweaty, and content. "Damn. That was wonderful," Naruto said, chuckling afterwards. "I don't think I've ever been so exhausted." Sakura smirked at him and said, "It was just as I had hoped. That was amazing, Naruto-kun." Kissing him lovingly on the lips, she soon smirked at Orika and said, "And you? That thing you did with your tongue? I have to admit, I'd love to feel that again." Orika giggled and said, "That's just one of the many things I can grant to you and Naruto-kun once you've joined me. Aside from all the power I'll grant you both, I mean." Before they could say any more, the purple-haired Anbu that had been standing guard outside entered the room, catching Naruto and Sakura off guard. Removing her mask, she looked straight into Orika's eyes and said, "Orika-sama, sorry to disturb you like this, but it's important." Naruto and Sakura's brows quirked up in curiosity as they looked between the Anbu and Orika. "Okay, somebody's going to have to explain this to me," Naruto said. Orika sat up, the blanket dropping and revealing her bare chest for all to see. "What is it, Yugao?" "I was comfortable." Yugao bowed apologetically before saying, "A mob has formed and is on their way here as we speak. It would seem word has spread about Sasuke-kun's death and the people are blaming Naruto-kun. I think we all know why that's the case." Orika scowled and asked, "They dared to attack my Naruto-kun over that brat's death tch, of course they would. I'm willing to bet Hiruzen let it slip that Sasuke died in the Chunin Exams while Naruto-kun survived the encounter with the big bad Orika. Of course they'd pin the blame on Naruto-kun. Thanks for the warning, Yugao. Return to your post." Sighing softly, Orika kissed Naruto tenderly on the lips before she climbed out of bed and redressed. Afterwards, she bade him goodbye and left. Naruto and Sakura groaned as they laid back on the bed. Funking hell. Damn that old bastard. Damn the people of this village. Naruto said irritably. Sakura sighed and got out of the bed, putting her clothes back on and handing Naruto his clothing as well. I had hoped we'd have more time together. I didn't expect the people to mount an attack on you now that you're a shinobi of the village. Of course they'd do this. The old bastard manipulated them into thinking I'm at fault for Sasuke's death. The weapon needs to be kept under control, and the weapon needs to know that there's only one person that will look after him every time something like this happens. I tortured Kiba in the prelims, and I've been acting differently from how he's been trying to condition me. I'm clearly getting out of hand, and I need to be reminded of my place in the world. Grumbling again, Naruto got up and got dressed. We'll have to talk to Yuga later, see what the deal is with her and Orika. Though if I had to guess, I'd say she's another of Orika-chan's agents in the village. An agent in the Anbu? Orika-sama's got some serious connections, doesn't she? Regardless, we need to get out of here. Is there someplace safe we can go to for the time being? Sakura questioned, clearly worried about what could happen. Naruto shook his head and said, no. We're not running. If I revert to my old ways of running and hiding from the people of this village, it'll just raise more suspicion. I'm willing to bet he wants me to fight back this time. So I'm going to try something he likely won't expect. I'm going to be honest with the people and try to convince them to leave me alone using the peaceful option. Sakura frowned and asked, isn't that a bit dangerous? They've never listened to you before. True. But it's better than doing what the old bastard wants. If they attack me, then they attack me. I want you to sneak out through the window and flee. I don't want you getting involved in this. Naruto suggested. The Pinket frowned and asked, are you sure? Shouldn't I stay and help? Naruto shook his head and said, no offense, Sakura-chan, but you haven't exactly kept up with your training. I know you're planning to take things much more seriously from now on, and I'm happy for that. The problem here is the fact that these monsters will try to hurt you, and I don't want to give away too much of what I'm really capable of. If worse comes to worst and they don't listen, I'll have to let them beat me to a pulp. I won't let them kill me, but I'll have to accept their beating. Sakura's eyes widened for a time and she wanted to protest vehemently, but the more that she thought about it, the more she realized that he was right. Hugging him tight, she gave him a light kiss on the lips and said, I love you. Be safe, Naruto-kun. And with that, she leapt out the back window and hurried away. Blushing a bit at the confession, he soon shook it off and stepped outside. Walking down the stairs, he looked at the mob as they came into view. What do you assholes want this time? What could I have possibly done to you this time? The woman at the front of the mob glared at him and shouted, you're the reason Sasuke-kun is dead. You took him away from us. He was meant for greatness. It should have been you Orika killed. I bet you didn't even try to save Sasuke-kun, did you? Assuming, Naruto soon looked the woman in her eyes before staring at the others one by one. I'm assuming you missed a detail where I was attacked as well. We were separated in the forest of death and I fell under attack. When I finally caught up to my teammates, it was too late. Orika had attacked Sasuke and Sakura and there was literally nothing I could have done. I did what I could. Sakura and I got the scrolls we needed and rushed with Sasuke to the tower. We made sure that Iruka-sensei got Sasuke the help he needed. It was too damn late though. We did everything we could and it still wasn't enough. So for what it's worth, I'm sorry. It was a shitty situation and I wish things had gone differently, but there's literally nothing I can do now and there was nothing I could have done then to set things right. Sighing softly, Naruto asked, do you really want to attack a shinobi of Konoha? I tried, damn it. Do you really think I wanted Sasuke to die? We didn't get along, I know that. But for funk's sake, he was my teammate. Even if I didn't like the guy, I would have done everything possible to keep that jerk safe. After all, those who break the rules are trash, but those who abandon their comrades are worse than trash. That's what we were taught and I took those words to heart. So I am sorry. There was nothing I could have done. If I had been there, you can believe me when I say that I would have fought hard as hell to keep him safe. If that's not good enough for you people, then what the hell could I possibly say or do to make you believe I meant him no harm? Do I need to let you beat the shit out of me again until you're pleased with yourselves? The man stepped forward and looked hard into Naruto's eyes, almost as if he was searching for the truth in them. You really mean that? Naruto nodded once and said, yes. I tried to save Sasuke's life. We got him to the tower as fast as we could. It wasn't enough though. The man frowned and slowly turned around, walking back to the mob. Let's go. I believe him. Half of the mob nodded in agreement and proceeded to leave. However, the other half, including the woman who had spoken up before, glared at Naruto and began to move in closer. It still should have been you that died in there, demon. Naruto sighed and closed his eyes, waiting for the inevitable beating. However, when it didn't come, he opened his eyes and saw a number of Anbu had surrounded what remained of the rather large mob. When the third Hokage appeared at his side, Naruto quirked a brow and asked, "What are you doing here, Gramps?" "I was resigned to just taking another beating." The third Hokage frowned at Naruto and asked, "Why didn't you opt to fight back? I know you have the strength to handle yourself in a situation such as this." The blonde shrugged and said, "What would fighting back accomplish? It would only prove them right about me. I'm not a heartless, soulless monster, Gramps. I've just been through far too much and I can't handle it all anymore." I spoke the truth though. If I could have saved Sasuke, I would have. He was a teammate. Did I laugh when he died? Yes. Am I ashamed of it? Nope. Sasuke was an asshole that treated everyone like shit. Sure, I'm glad he's gone. But at the same time, I took those words to heart. I got Sasuke to the tower as fast as I possibly could have. I did what I could to try and save him. It just wasn't enough. I see. I'll admit, your behavior had me worried. But seeing how you handled this situation is relieving, Naruto-kun. I'm glad to see you haven't changed as much as I thought you had. Tell me, do you have anyone to help you train for the finals? Chances are good that you'll end up fighting some strong opponents in the finals, and it wouldn't do to enter those matches unprepared," Hiruzen said. Naruto frowned and shook his head. "You already know I can't count on Kakashi. And if I receive any training from someone, I'd like for them to train Sakura-chan too. She was neglected by Kakashi too, and she's currently one of the weakest amongst my graduating class. She wants to get stronger, so whoever takes over my training has to agree to train her too, or else it's a no-go. I'd rather train just the two of us together than let somebody neglect either of us again." Hiruzen frowned and thought for a time before saying, "That's a bit of a problem. I was going to have Jiraiya take you for training. I don't know if he'd be interested in training Sakura-chan. I'll try talking to him. If he refuses, I'll try to find somebody that will train you both. For now, do you think you got all of that pent-up frustration out of your system?" Raising a brow in curiosity, Naruto said, "Maybe. I finally had sex, so I'm feeling great for the most part. Just wish I didn't have to deal with another damn mob being a pain in the ass. Otherwise I probably could have gone another 3 or 4 rounds. Not sure if Sakura-chan could have handled all of that though." Despite himself, a trickle of blood leaked out of Hiruzen's nose and he found himself giggling pervertedly before he could stop himself. Seeing this, Naruto facepalmed and said, "Mind out of the gutter, old man. That's my girl you're imagining." Quickly shaking himself out of his fantasies, Hiruzen nodded in understanding. "So it is. Well, I'm glad you're feeling better, Naruto-kun. I need to get back to my office, so why don't you go do whatever you had planned for the rest of the day, okay? I'll talk to Jiraiya and see if he'll be willing to train you both. If not, I'll try to see if anyone else is available to teach you." Before he could say anything more, Yuga appeared, kneeling to the Hokage. "Hokage-sama, if it's not too much trouble, perhaps you could allow me to train the both of them." Jiraiya-sama might mean well, but his perversions tend to get in the way more than half of the time. He'd rather peep on women in the hot springs than focus on a potential student. You know this. Hiruzen frowned slightly as he looked at Yugao. Strange. Why would Yugao be volunteering to teach a couple of genin? Though, she does have a point. Sighing softly, he said, "You have a point. Remove your mask and introduce yourself to your new students properly. While you are training them, you are not Anbu-kat. You are Yugao Yuzuki, Sensei to Naruto Uzumaki and Sakura Haruno." Actually, wait, looking around, Hiruzen blinked a couple of times and asked, "Naruto-kun? Where is Sakura anyways?" Naruto quirked a brow and asked, just now noticing she's not here. Chuckling, the blonde shook his head and said, "I had her sneak out the back so she wouldn't be attacked by the mob. I'm not sure where she is now." The Hokage nodded in understanding. "Alright then. Yugao, I suggest you get started on a lesson plan for your new students. Naruto-kun, I'll call for you and Sakura tomorrow morning so Yugao can take you for training. Do tell me something, Yugao, where will this training of yours take place?" Yugao smirked at the Hokage and said, "The Forest of Death. It's the perfect place to improve a person's skills at an exceptionally large pace. I must ask that you not send anyone in looking for us, however. I'm planning to really put them through the ringer and I don't want anyone to disturb us. Sakura is a fangirl, or she was, at any rate. She needs a lot of work. And Naruto-kun. I need to determine his skill level, learn what he's really capable of, and build on him from there. All I ask is that you trust me to turn them into incredible shinobi of Konoha. Please, sir." Despite his suspicions in this moment, Hiruzen nodded and said, "I trust you, Yugao. If you feel this is what's best for Naruto-kun and Sakura, then I'll do as you ask. Just remember to make sure the two of them make it to the finals on time." The purple-haired Anbu frowned as she looked into Hiruzen's eyes. "I'm not Kakashi, Hokage-sama. Have I?" The Hokage smiled and said, "You're right. You've always been very punctual and precise about everything. You're one of the best Anbu in the village, if not the best. Very well, I'll entrust their safety and training to you, Yugao. Just make sure they're strong enough to handle themselves and anything anyone could throw at them. Naruto-kun, be at the Forest of Death at 8 a.m. I'll send instructions to Sakura to meet you there at that time as well. Yugao, don't let me down. And with that, the Hokage left to return to his office. As soon as he was gone, Naruto smirked at Yugao and said, well, aren't you the clever one? You've just ensured Sakura-chan and I can get out of here a lot quicker than anticipated. It would be quite some time before he realized the two of us were gone. What are you going to do though? Will you come with us? The purple-haired Kunoichi frowned and said, it depends on what Orika-sama wants, Naruto-kun. If she wants me to stay here, then I'll stay here. I'll pretend to be Hate's kind, loving girlfriend for a while longer if I need to be. In truth, I can't stand that guy. But he makes for a good cover story. Shrugging her shoulders, Yugao smirked at Naruto and said, I saw you, you know. Seems like you were having a lot of fun with Orika-sama and Sakura. Despite being a virgin, you sure seemed to know what you were doing. Blushing badly, Naruto muttered, pervert. Giggling a bit, Yugao patted him atop his head and said, get some rest, Naruto-kun. I'll see you bright and early tomorrow morning. Don't be late. Yugao said before she vanished via Shunshin. Left on his own, Naruto prepared to re-enter his apartment, only to frown as he sensed someone watching him. Scowling at this, he said, whoever's there, you can come out now. I won't hurt you. Hearing an eep. Coming from around the corner, Naruto's brow quirked upwards and he walked over to the hidden person, stumbling upon Hinata Hyuga. Looking her over carefully, he asked, you're already out of the hospital. You took quite the beating. Are you sure you're okay? Hinata blushed prettily and nodded slowly. They said I'm alright now. Aye. Naruto sighed and massaged his forehead tiredly. Let me guess, you saw and heard all of that, didn't you? The gorgeous young woman nodded and said, yes. I watched you. Having sex, I mean. I'm sorry. I know I shouldn't have and I probably should have said something, but. Sighing softly, Naruto took Hinata by the hand and led her inside of his apartment. Sitting her down on his couch, he sat beside her and placed a comforting hand on her shoulder. Ask me what you really want to ask me, Hinata-chan. Are you really planning to leave Konoha with Orika? Hinata questioned. Naruto sighed and nodded his head affirmatively. Yes. You know what my life has been like here in Konoha, Hinata-chan. I know you've been watching me every now and then. I'm sure you're already well aware that I'm the Jinchuriki of the Kyuubi no Yoko as well, hence why I'm so hated here. That old bastard, the Hokage, has been trying to manipulate me into being his perfect loyal little lapdog that will do everything he tells me to because I'd be too stupid to realize he was only using me. Did you know he never once told me who my parents are? Or even if I was loved and wanted? Hearing her gasp, Naruto nodded and said, yep. Anyways, yes, I'm leaving with Orika-chan. Hopefully sooner rather than later. I see. And Sakura too. Before now, she was always so mean to you. What changed? Hinata asked, clearly upset at the moment. Naruto frowned and lightly flicked Hinata in the forehead, earning a meep. Sound from her, much to his amusement. Just like I did with you, I rescued Sakura-chan from bullies when we were younger. Her parents convinced her I was evil though, and she kind of fell in with the whole Sasuke crowd later on and yeah. You get the picture. Anyways, in the Forest of Death, Ikinda said funk it and told her to go ahead and take Sasuke for a ride while he was unconscious. Did you know he was impotent? He couldn't get it up. Sure as hell caught me by surprise, though it's not entirely unexpected. I mean, if he could have, you know what, I'm not even going to go there. Talking about his junk is already making me feel icky. Despite herself, Hinata giggled and said, I think that's enough to make anyone feel disgusted, Naruto-kun. Chuckling, Naruto nodded his agreement. Anyways, once Sakura realized that she'd never have any way to start an actual family with Sasuke, she and I got to talking. Seems she did remember me saving her from bullies after all. We just talked for a while, and one thing kinda led to another, and somehow we were all over each other. We didn't have sex though, but damn did we want to. I'm telling you, chapter 1 of this story should have been called Blue Ball Syndrome for sure with how often I was beat-blocked by one thing or another. Hinata blinked a couple of times and asked, huh? Never mind. Naruto said, shaking that thought off. Anyways, I convinced Orika-chan to bring Sakura-chan with us. And you know what happened after we got back from the prelims. Suo, what do you plan to do now that you know all of this? The Hyuga heiress frowned and thought it over for a while. Weighing her options, she soon looked into Naruto's eyes and said, take me with you. Naruto blinked and asked, why exactly? Don't get me wrong, I'm not saying no, I'm just wondering. Hinata pouted cutely at him and said, I love you, Naruto-kun. I have for the longest time. My family treats me horribly. My father's an abusive asshole, my little sister takes after him in pretty much every way, and my own cousin, Neji, treats me like I'm trash. He blames me for what happened to his father, my uncle Hisashi. Kumo's the one to blame, not me. But no, he needed an easy target to place the blame on, and he chose me. I was only 3 years old at the time. I couldn't have possibly fought off my kidnapper. Taking a moment to breathe in and out calmly, Hinata said, the rest of my clan is no better. The main branch Hokage, especially the elders of the clan, are assholes that gladly abuse the curse seal on the branch house. And, because I'm the clan head's daughter, the branch house Hokage treat me as if I'm a criminal too. I just can't win in that clan. When we were younger, bullies wanted to tear out my eyes and beat me up because I was different from them. You saved me. Naruto-kun, there is literally nowhere else in the world that I would rather be than at your side. You're my reason for living. I need to be with you. If you leave without me I'd. Naruto frowned and asked, you'd end your life wouldn't you? Seeing her nod, he hugged her close and said, okay. I'll talk to Orika-chan about extracting you from Konoha with us. Get to the Forest of Death early and wait for us to arrive. Don't let anyone see you. Once it's safe, join us and we'll enter the Forest of Death together, okay? I don't want someone as pretty and as nice as you are to die because sighing heavily, he began to gently run his fingers through her hair. You'll never have to suffer alone again, Hinata-chan. Okay. Hinata nodded and buried her face in his chest, sobbing quietly to herself. When she finally managed to cry herself to sleep, Naruto picked her up and carried her to his bed. Lying her down on it gently, he covered her up and kissed her forehead before whispering, good night. Afterwards, he went to the couch and laid down upon it, waiting for sleep to claim him. I remember that incident. The old man should have had the spine to confront the Hokage about what he did. Instead sighing, he soon shook those thoughts off and drifted off to sleep. It wasn't the first time that he'd had to sleep on the couch, so it didn't really bother him all that much to have to do so now. As he drifted off, he smiled as he thought, my life's finally looking good. Bout funking time. The next day Forest of Death. Hiruzen smiled at Yugao and her chosen students. We likely won't be seeing each other for a while. Part of training in the Forest of Death is learning to survive against all odds. Yugao will teach you everything she knows, I'm sure. I want you to be careful in there. There are areas in the Forest of Death that are far more dangerous than anything you saw in there during the survival exercise. No matter how well prepared you think you are, I want you to be extremely careful in there. Now, I believe I've talked your ear off enough. Good luck. He said before he disappeared, leaving Naruto and friends on their own. Once they were on their own, Naruto motioned for his girlfriend and Yugao to follow him inside. After progressing a short distance into the forest, he looked to the side and said, you can come out now, Hinata-chan. Sakura and Yugao were initially confused. Then, Hinata came out of hiding and approached them. Upon reaching them, she bowed and said, sorry. I'm coming with you, okay? Sakura blinked a couple of times before smirking at her. You saw us, didn't you? Seeing Hinata blushing, the pin cat giggled and said, I don't mind. Tell me though, did you enjoy the show? Hinata blushed deeply and tried to stammer out a response, only for Yugao to lightly bop Sakura on the head. Enough of that. Orika-sama is waiting for us further inside. Rubbing the sore spot on her head, Sakura pouted at Yugao for a moment before eventually saying, yeah, I hear you. Let's go. And with that, the party of four delved deeper into the forest until they could see the tower in the distance. Afterwards, Yugao held up her hand and commanded the three of them to stop. When they heard a roar coming from nearby, Naruto and the girls understood why she had them stop. They followed Yugao as she began to climb a nearby tree. Following after her, they continued delving deeper into the forest until they came across a sign warning of extreme danger ahead. Are we sure we want to go in there? Naruto questioned uneasily. Yugao giggled and said, trust me, it's not as bad as it seems. Follow me. We'll see Orika-sama real soon, I promise. The others simply nodded as they followed Yugao into the danger zone. It didn't take much longer for them to reach a hidden entrance into an underground bunker of sorts. I see. Those signs were meant to keep people from finding this. Clever. Naruto thought to himself with a grin on his face. Entering the hideout, or whatever Orika preferred to call this place, Naruto looked around curiously. Okay, what exactly is this place? It's definitely not what I was expecting. Welcome, Naruto-kun. A familiar voice said. Out of the shadows stepped Kiriko Yakushi. And welcome to your friends as well. As for what this place is, think of it like a hidden lab, some place to test new concoctions, study up on a variety of different topics, and even where you can sit and read a good book if you're at all interested. Yugao frowned and said, it's also one of the only safe places for Orika-sama in the village, after what Danzo pulled. All because she wouldn't help that sick bastard. Kiriko nodded and said, that's why Danzo is our primary target in this invasion. we're going to kill that monster. We target Hiruzen as well, but for now we only want to distract him, so he won't notice you're all gone until it's too late. Besides, we happen to think it's appropriate that you be the one to kill that monster, Naruto-kun. Naruto clenched his fist tight and grinned somewhat sadistically. That's something I have to look forward to then. I might not stand a chance as I am now, but soon enough, I know I'll be strong enough to take him down. Right now, I'll just be happy to get the hell out of this village. I want to be free of these monsters. Kiriko nodded and led them down the hallway and into a rather large room. Sitting there was Orika, a pleasant smile on her face. Naruto-kun. So nice of you to come. And I see you've brought little Hinata-chan as well. I assume you have decided to escape the village as well. Hinata nodded and bowed politely to Orika. Yes, Orika-sama. Naruto-kun is the only reason I've chosen to go on living. I need him in my life, otherwise. Naruto placed a comforting hand on Hinata's shoulder and said, "It's okay Hinata-chan. Orika-chan won't turn you away." Orika smiled kindly at that and said, "Naruto-kun is right. I've had my agents keep an eye on you, Hinata-chan. My only concern is the fact that you were too afraid to approach my Naruto-kun. I'm a little disappointed that you never made the effort to reach out to him and be his friend. If I bring you with me, I need to know that you'll step up and do the right thing if the situation calls for action. Can you become more confident to the point you can defend Naruto-kun if need be? Or will you always be a timid little girl?" Hinata frowned for a moment before she reached out and took Naruto's hand, clenching it tightly. "From now on, I'll do absolutely anything to stand at Naruto-kun's side. Here it's been hard because I knew that if I tried to get close to Naruto-kun, my father would do something to him again. My father and my clan never approved of Naruto-kun. When he saved me from bullies, the elders sent members of the branch house to assault him to prove a lesson to the two of us. I didn't want Naruto-kun to be hurt ever again. But I wanted him to have a friend, someone he could count on to have his back. I didn't know what to do. If you help me escape with Naruto-kun, I'll never let anyone hurt him ever again." Naruto blushed a bit at how passionate Hinata was about this. "Hinata-chan." Orika smiled proudly at Hinata and clapped her hands. "Very good. Kiriko-chan will get you three out of the village. I have further need of you here. I promise you that as soon as our business here is concluded, we will join you in a Tagakur. Please be safe, Naruto-kun, Sakura-chan, and Hinata-chan. Kiriko-chan, take very good care of them. Do you understand me?" Kiriko bowed to her master and said, "Of course, Orika-sama. Come, let's get the three of you out of here and back home where you belong." Sakura frowned as she looked between Orika and Yugao. "Will you two be okay? Are you sure we can't help in some way?" Yugao smiled at her and said, "We will be just fine. We appreciate the offer, but our main priority is getting you out of here. Everything else is just a secondary objective. So please don't worry too much. Kiriko-san, we're counting on you." Kiriko nodded and said, "Of course. Be safe, both of you." Looking at her three charges, Kiriko motioned for them to follow her. Nobody else knows about this, but the tunnels down here extend all the way outside the village. We built them that way just in case. The trio nodded in understanding before Naruto realized something. "Wait, I forgot to give Orika-chan a sample of my blood." Kiriko smirked at him before pointing towards a nearby room. "I was actually about to take care of that little problem. In here, sweetheart." Opening the door, she led Naruto inside of the makeshift lab and grabbed hold of a few vials. Motioning for Naruto to hold out his arm, she proceeded with the necessary procedures that came with drawing blood. Once she had 2 vials full of blood, she smiled at her love and said, "Make a clone and have it run these to Orika-sama. Be extra careful not to drop them. She'll do what needs to be done with them." Naruto nodded and created a single shadow clone to take the vials to Orika. Once that was done, he fixed his sleeve before following after Kiriko once again. It would be a long walk before they emerged well outside of the village. "Be safe Orika-chan, Yugao-san. I don't want you to be hurt." 1 week later. Yugao couldn't help but smirk as she watched her boyfriend from the shadows. Seeing as she was supposed to be in the forest of death, training Naruto and Sakura, she couldn't reveal herself to anyone. However, Orika had finally given her permission to assassinate Heichiko. Oh, how she hated the man. She hated having to kiss him. She hated letting him touch her. She felt disgusted with herself for even letting the man look at her. Now here she was, ready to kill the bastard. When Heiid entered an alley, Yugao frowned slightly. He knows he's being followed. Clever bastard. She thought to herself with a heavy frown on her face. Shrugging it off, she put on a mask Orika had given her to wear should she need to. Afterwards, she slipped into the alley and waited patiently. When Heiid appeared behind her with a kunai to her throat, she smirked slightly, but didn't say a word. "Who are you and why are you following me? You don't look like one of our own," Heiid said, only to gasp when the kunoichi in his grip burst into smoke. Before he could react, he felt 3 blades puncture him in the heart, a lung, and his throat. Recognizing the technique, he tried to speak her name, only to gag on his own blood. Yugao Wai. Dispelling her clones, Yugao cleaned her blade before slipping it away into its sheath. Without speaking a word, she severed his head from his body and sealed it away within a scroll. It wouldn't do to let a Yamanaka search through the dead man's mind, after all. Once her business was done, she disappeared into the darkness, making her way back towards the forest of death. On the way, however, she saw something that bothered her. What the hell is that girl doing? Up ahead of her, she saw Gaia attacking Dosu, an ally. Standing nearby, watching the spectacle, was the Sunagaker Jonin Baki. He didn't seem to care that Gaia was attempting to kill someone that they were in an alliance with. Furious, she prepared to move in and do something about it, but before she could, Dosu became entrapped in Gaia's sand. When he screamed out in anguish a moment later, she knew she was too late to save him. As his blood dripped through the sand and to the ground below, Yugao thought, Orika-sama will be hearing about this. Gaia just killed an ally. And with that, she disappeared once more into the nearby forest of death. The Togaker 2 days later. Naruto smiled as he looked around the village known as a Togaker. While the main location seemed to be an underground base of sorts, an actual village had been built atop of it. It wasn't overly large, but it was certainly a beautiful village, all things considered. The group had arrived about 3 days ago and had begun to get truly settled in. They had been given some of the nicest rooms available in the underground area where it was safest. Sakura and Hinata both frequently snuck into his room to cuddle with him though, so they rarely slept in their own beds. Naruto didn't really mind, though. It was nice to be so affectionate with people after the hell he had gone through back in Konohagakure. At the moment, the 3 of them were listening to a lecture Kiriko was giving to a class full of students, themselves included. She was teaching them the basic mechanics of medical ninjutsu, as well as basic first aid. While most of this was basically a recap of what they already knew, they were still learning more about a field that each of them were interested in. When Kiriko began the hands-on teaching, Sakura happily volunteered. The Pinket was excited to learn how to use medical ninjutsu. It felt like a field that was right up her alley, and she couldn't wait to make proper use of it. While Kiriko helped Sakura learn the ins and outs of medical ninjutsu, Hinata stepped up to Naruto and leaned in, kissing him on the cheek. Do you have any regrets about coming here, Naruto-kun? You haven't really said much since we arrived. Naruto blinked a couple of times before shaking his head. Of course not. I already love it here. It's just taking a while for it to set in that I'm safe now. I'm still a little shocked, I suppose. I've dreamt of being free for so long, and now that I have my freedom, it's hard to believe it. I just don't know how to feel right now. Smiling sweetly at him, she said, you'll get used to it, sweetheart. Just take your time, okay? You've been through so much already. You deserve this happiness. And leaning in close, she nipped at his ear before whispering to him, I'll gladly bear your children if you so desire. I want to make sure you're happier than you've ever been. Naruto blushed deeply and struggled to come up with any kind of response to what she had just said. After taking a moment to breathe, he looked into Hinata's eyes for a time. You're serious, aren't you? Of course I am. I've dreamt of being your wife and bearing your children for so long. I honestly don't care much about anything else but you, Naruto-kun. Well, you and cinnamon buns. I couldn't live without them. She said with a giggle. I love you, sweetheart. More than anything. I want to say it back, I really do, but at the moment all I can admit to is that I'm really fond of you, Hinata-chan. You and the others make me so happy. I've never really known what love feels like before, so this is all still so new to me. I'm sure I'll be able to say it back soon enough. If it helps, I view each of you as an important member of my family. I love being with each of you and spending time with all of you. Honestly, you girls are more important to me than anything. I want us to be happy together for a long, long time. Naruto admitted. Hinata simply smiled at him before resting her head against his chest. It's okay, sweetheart. There's no rush at all. Ooh, looks like it's my turn. Wish me luck, Naru-kun. She exclaimed before kissing his cheek again. As she hurried over to Kiriko to begin her hands-on lesson, she couldn't help but giggle happily. Sakura joined Naruto and smiled at him. Hello, Naruto-kun. Unlike Iruka, Kiriko's actually pretty fun to learn under. She's a great teacher and doesn't bore the crap out of people. I like it. Naruto chuckled softly and hugged her close to himself. Kiriko-chan's always been a great teacher. She's taught me so much already and I'm eager to continue learning under her. For now though, I'm content to just spend time with you girls. Now that I don't have to constantly worry that I might be attacked, I feel at peace with myself and my surroundings. It's a wonderful feeling. Good. Now hush. Let's just snuggle together for a while. Sakura said as she leaned against him, wrapping her arms around him and nuzzling into his neck until she felt comfortable. Love you, Naru-kun. I wish I could say it back, Sakura-chan. Maybe I can soon. For now, I'm happy just like this. Still, I hope you and Yuga are alright, Orika-chan. Please be careful, Naruto thought, frowning slightly as he did. Despite the fact that he knew they'd be okay, he still couldn't help but worry. I swear, if anyone tries to take away my newfound happiness, I'll crush them. Orika. The snake Sanin frowned deeply as she watched Gaia from the shadows. She wasn't exactly pleased that this girl killed someone that could have been a good friend to her beloved. And yet, she couldn't help but feel that Gaia might make for a good present for Naruto-kun. Weird how that works. Deciding to leave her alone for now, the Sanin decided that now was as good a time as any to access the home Minato and Kushina had left for their son. Upon arriving, she made sure nobody else was around before she used a bit of Naruto's blood to gain access to the home. Slipping inside quietly, she proceeded to look around inside of the home. Naruto-kun would probably like to have his parents' home brought to him, but that's a bit risky. He'll just have to make do with everything else they left for him. Time to get to work. For a good while, Orika sealed a number of things inside of a large pack's worth of sealing scrolls. When she was finally done, she let out a quiet sigh and looked around inside the house one final time. Such a beautiful home. It's a shame I can't just take it with me. Leaving the building, she slipped out and then disappeared into the shadows once again. Now if only I could figure out what to do about Gaia. Baki needs to be exposed of, but Gaia and her siblings could be useful recruits if I can convince them to come with me to Atogakure. Oh well, at least I have some time to think of something. She thought to herself as she made the journey back to the Forest of Death. Don't you worry, Naruto-kun. Orika-chan has everything covered and we'll be together again soon. Just a few more weeks to go, then Danzo will pay for his crimes and we can all be a happy family together. Nothing will stand in the way of our happiness. The end. So how was this part? I hope you like it. And if you like it, share this part with your friends and like the video too. And don't forget to subscribe our channel for daily awesome fanfiction. Okay, it's time for me to go. Bye bye.